My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence, that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. All right, here's a criminal teamwork amongst the people of the state. Terrorists, Latina female, 7XDL439. At the same time that the entity is stalking, flying quite a distance, Ontario Town Square, not rising in elevation, not getting any quieter, hovering over the neighborhood of demons that are gang stalking. That's P.O.C's United Airlines. All right, but this is the pattern of conduct. Delta Airlines, Southwest Airlines, UPS, FedEx, Amazon Prime Air, Frontier Airlines, Starlux Airlines, Alaska Airlines, okay, that are still proceeding west, and they're acting like they're then rising in elevation. My evidence shows that you're rising in elevation over the housing community while I'm inside of the Ontario Village Shopping Center. This is the entity that's stalking. And this is the entity that's being federally prosecuted. Stalking in the path at the red light, the traffic lights that the entity controls, which is also light activity in the path. It's demonic and it's psychopathic. This is the public corruption. And they are all demons together. Demons in the sky space. The people of the state and the commercial airline companies shall be no more. Martial law, there will be no plane activity. There will be no airport in Ontario, California. Okay, and it's already over. You're looking at them with knowledge of the fact that they are fully caught and exposed and literally convicted, and they're still engaged. Why do you think they're engaged in that level of obvious criminal conduct? Because they know that it is already over, which is desperation, suicidal, self-destructive. Why would you do that? This is an entity that's very well much anticipating federal prison and a shutdown, and the shutdown is going to be martial law, and that includes the people of the state. Okay, that's also not a destination. This is confirmation with regard to what I'm stating. Stalking. You don't maintain an airport to engage in stalking, and you're not going to maintain an airport that's stalking. And that's the U.S. military that exposed its own co-defendant, the people of the state who are going to be prosecuted for treason. That's P.O.C. And the entity is engaging in this. Every license plate that I document, while they were stalking the other night with the U.S. military that flew over my head by helicopter in the neighborhood, every license plate that I documented is going to prison. They represent the people of the state, and they're going to federal prison. That's how domestic terrorists are going to be treated under federal law. This same impunity, this disregard for your rights to not be subject to it. All right? They're going to prison. As clearly as I go and I represent the people of the state, because they're all engaged in the pattern of conduct, and that's what the evidence has already demonstrated. It's also demonstrating their impunity. The U.S. military that's gang stalking is the people of the state that are gang stalking. And the way in which they do so with impunity, you're all sharing in that ongoing criminal pattern of conduct and that attitude toward your lawlessness, and you're going to prison. That's the pattern of conduct. It is currently 6:06 a.m. That is the entity that is very much indeed admitting that they're not going anywhere and that they're stalking me and that I'm the focal point. And that is good. That is providence as far as the law, because the people of the state are going to federal prison. The U.S. military already know that it's over for them as well. These are very much a self-destructive and suicidal people. They're demon-possessed. The demon-possessed are being put under martial law. The demon-possessed are being deported. The demon-possessed are being federally prosecuted. Okay? P.O.C. This is psychopathic. This is a psychopathic pacing. And this is occurring when I start speaking about the demons directly. They engage in this conduct. Okay? That's the pattern of conduct. And that is Alaska Airlines in particular. They're going to be civilly and criminally prosecuted. All right? A civil prosecution for treason and furtherance of murdering me. That is going to be a lawsuit that will serve to destroy that company. It's not going to continue. It will no longer be. All right, that's the pattern of conduct while the entity is engaging. That's 3 minutes and 40 seconds. And it is currently, by the way, 6:07 a.m. None of those are flights published on the website. None of those are flights headed to a destination. They're not going to Honolulu by pacing and rising in elevation right here over B Street. This is where the Ontario police are stalking as well. This is where the people of the state are stalking all together under the fake sun. This is the entity that's engaged in that. The more that I speak the truth about what they are and what's going to happen, the more demons that are the U.S. military that are engaging in exposed acts of war engage in that. And that's because this criminal pattern of conduct is demonic activity. So that is, their demonic impulses are that which they cannot control. That is also a behavioral health concern threatening national security. Moreover, as I speak of it, they engage in more of it, commit more of it. That is because they are actually mentally ill. They are demon possessed. And as they engage in it, it is serving their own prosecution. The prosecution of the people that have no day in court that is ever going to be successful. There is no defense. There is no protection. There is no deviation from the federal RICO case against them. They are fully proven under the law that as the U.S. military engages in the pattern of conduct, as the entity is stalking in planes and helicopters, as the entity maintains that specific environment, every single last person is sharing in that criminal pattern of conduct. That's how idiotic this psychopathic pacing, as I begin documenting, is, how self-destructive it is. There is no explanation for the sun to remain over me, one person, as I go from city to city, because it's no longer remaining over Euclid Avenue and C Street, where there would never be any sun over me on B Street and Fern. But that's what I've documented. I've documented B Street and Palm, excuse me. That's exactly what I've documented in the middle of the day. This is the prosecution of the entire entity. All right. This is the fourth plane. This is mentally ill behavior. And this is the entity that's going to be on lockdown for the protection of the American people. Okay, the civil cases are a means of prosecuting. That's United Airlines. That's what you're seeing. So you're Delta Airlines, United Airlines, Alaska Airlines. And that's, I want to be clear, that's a demon-possessed homosexual male that engages in what is stalking using the large commercial planes. Those are not passengers on that plane. The U.S. military are getting in those planes, engaging in psychopathic behavior. And the people of the state are in their homes engaging in criminal activity right now. This is the criminal act. This is the criminal system. Crossing path is pursuant to what is a population that knows exactly where I'm at and is acting in sync with them. As I'm walking through the neighborhood and the entity is stalking me by commercial airline companies that do not have any destination by hovering over this street intersection, you're not taking off from the airport, hovering over here. And don't forget when they're doing the same thing northwest over the Pizza Hut parking lot. This is the entity that's engaged in what is stalking me, and it lets you know that the people of the state are stalking, and you're going to be prosecuted. You're going to be federally prosecuted. There is no difference between the gang stalking church, the gang stalking establishments, the businesses, the gang stalkers on the roads and the highways. The entity's pattern of conduct is prosecuting the people, and that's what I said is the purpose at the outset. The domestic terrorists are the constituents of the very state, and they are being federally prosecuted. They are enemies. They engage in and facilitate murder amongst themselves and amongst targeted individuals like myself. That's the pattern of conduct in the U.S. Very enemies of this country have served to prosecute them and their co-defendant, who are the people of the state. That's P.O.C. By the way, 6:11 a.m. This is the entity that's engaging in that. As you can clearly see, the entity's pattern of conduct is directly indicative to severe mental instability, and it is also directly incriminating to the population who are in the area where the U.S. government is maintaining that pattern of conduct. The pattern of conduct with regard to the plane activity, that is demonic. You also, what is demonic with regard to the frequency, you're witnessing demonic activity, and it's letting you know that they're in there facilitating venues, monitoring via communication devices, and it's a criminal act while they are literally in the path, meaning it is criminal to live in Ontario, California, being anywhere around me. You don't have a place of belonging when the U.S. military is maintaining criminal surveillance and furtherance of murdering anyone, and that's what they're all doing. All of them. And they're being prosecuted because they are proven to be engaging in that pattern of conduct. You pull up at your home with regard to molesting me with light. I documented that right here. You are gang stalking me under the fake sun. You're engaging in surveillance on the roads and the highways, crossing paths, while the entity, just like you see in this video, is stalking in plane after plane, including in helicopters. The entire city of Ontario is already surrounded. All right, they're already in a chokehold with regard to the federal prosecution of them. The U.S. military's prosecution is the prosecution of them, the people of the state. All right. And what you're aware of is that they're all demon possessed. All of them. They are all demon possessed. They are all vagina monitors. They're sex offenders. That's what a gang stalker is. A violent sex offender. They're stalking you everywhere at all times. And they're in their homes where they cannot hide. These are all facilitating venues, and they're all being prosecuted. P.O.C. It is currently, just want to get this one, 6:12 a.m. Alrighty, this is letting you know what the entity is doing, flying over my head in the Fontana parking lot in an Amazon Prime airplane. Pay attention to what I'm documenting on April 14, 2026. While they're flying over my head on the sidewalk in Montclair, California, Southwest Airlines. That's gang stalking right here. There's only one airport though. While I'm in Ontario at B Street and Fern. While the entity is stalking, while I am in Pomona, California, and UPS is hovering over the entire airport. The airport is being shut down. It is proven that. And these are suicidal demons. They are not the elite at all. Alrighty, this is an entity. My video ceasing to exist, especially when I'm reminding you about the entity stalking me in Fontana and in Pomona and in Montclair. And there's only one airport with regard to commercial airline companies, which is Ontario International Airport. Nonetheless, the entity is maintaining this criminal conduct right here on B Street, and the entity is doing so with regard to what is a residential community. The entity is engaging in that. The residential community is full of gang stalkers. So that's by virtue identifying that, while the entity has the 9th plane flying over. The entity is doing so while the demon possessed that are in positions of authority, they fully anticipate prosecution. They fully anticipate what is worldwide exposure. And this is also speaking to the vulnerability that they are to the U.S. interests with regard to enemies, and the vulnerability that they've created by virtue of targeting someone that is exposed. As I prosecute the government, they have made the United States weaker on the international scene, which is also how they are enemies of the state. The entities engaging in psychotic behavior while they're engaged in what is federal stalking. So I just want to make sure that that is clear, all the ways in which the people of the state are engaging in criminal activity, which you're witnessing while the entity is stalking in commercial planes. That is the concoction of the mentally ill in the first place. The entity is engaging in this through what are commercial airline companies that are maintaining establishments, that are selling you products, that are you are welcoming into your home, that are keeping you under surveillance. And the surveillance system is serving for targeting American citizens. And that's why something like an airport that is proven to be, under evidence and science, a stalker, that's the absurdity that's necessitating shutting it down. But I just want to make sure that I clarify, the entity is engaging in this stalking conduct, and it is an admission. My evidence is not serving for what is putting it together and investigating. The entity is clearly admitting that they are engaging in criminal surveillance, and the admission is shared by the people of the state that don't have anything in court legally relevant to establish about themselves. The entity is engaging in this with the full intention to commit murder as an entity, and that criminal conspiracy is completed while they engage in the criminal pattern of conduct. It is currently 6:17 a.m. This is the entity that's doing so at what is, as I'm walking down B Street. And you're mindful of what they're doing at the Ontario Town Square, the OVITT Family Community Library, right? They're flying over the, while I'm on the bench and I'm showing you the entity doing cartwheels right in alignment to my person. While they're engaging in that while I'm at the Ontario Town Square, that's the entity that is following as I'm going through the neighborhood. The airport is being shut down. Alrighty, just want to give you some analysis regarding the lack of any reasoning skills and the lack of any logic or any actual strategy regarding stalkers that are caught stalking, meaning the government that's a stalker and that's caught stalking. So the government that's caught engaging in that which is obviously and overtly within exactly what it is the allegations show, that they're stalking, and that they're stalking with the people of the state, and they're doing that because they're intending to murder someone. That's how the legal theory goes. This is the purpose of the pattern of conduct. What you literally witnessed on video is the entity stalking with the people of the state. It was a Latina female. And as I catch that on video, the mentally ill who are demons become enraged. So the entity literally in their mind, this is the logic of, okay, I got caught robbing a bank on surveillance camera, so I'm going to have to keep robbing banks on surveillance cameras to disprove that I'm robbing banks. That's literally the mindset of those that are already subject to what is the penetration of the federal government that's going to break down the state of California. The entities engaging in this in front of the world, they have embarrassed what is the United States military. They who are the demons engaging in this have embarrassed themselves. The people of the state have humiliated themselves. And this is also, understand, the kingdom of darkness, Satan, who is humiliated while he is being exposed. He is a spirit. That's why I'm referring to it in that regard. He has humiliated himself with regard to not engaging in anything, in any stealth, in any sophisticated, intricate, sneaky level that's above suspicion, or that appears as anything remotely normal or as though it's not within the allegations. And this is what Satan prides itself at, doing it right in front of your face and you're being oblivious to it. That's not what this is. And you're looking at the blatant engagement and what are very serious allegations. And the government has been relegated. That is, Satan has been relegated. And who is Satan using? The constituents of the state and literally the government. And you have multi-million-dollar companies that are sharing in that. That is speaking to an unprecedented means of attaining justice. But you literally witness the entity that is caught engaging in that together, like I always do. And the entity just decided to engage in what is 8 more planes flying over this neighborhood. 8 more. And doing so at 6 o'clock in the morning. Doing so while you are miles away from an airport. But yet, don't forget, when I'm on the phone with Fabiola of San Bernardino County and UPS, don't forget the plane is like rising up in the air. That's supposed to be in your mind, oh, that's a takeoff. Oh, and it's definitely a takeoff because we're all forgetting about UPS flying it over in cartwheels over campus in Holt and doing cartwheels repeatedly over the Stater brothers off of Holt Boulevard, dipping behind the Chevron at 506 North Euclid Avenue over while I'm walking out and walking to, dipping down like you're landing at the downtown Ontario luxury apartments. You're forgetting about all of that because they are at Holt Boulevard while I'm at the county office on the phone with Fabiola, and which is San Bernardino County, that's being federally prosecuted. And this is the entity that engages in what is psychotic behavior, because not only are you supposed to be acting like you're taking off from the airport and you're stalking someone, and then you're engaging in that while the entity just provided you within a 6-7 minute video, essentially one plane every 55 to 60 seconds. And that's occurring because the mentally ill become enraged when they are caught. They've been caught over 10,000 times. I have over 10,000 videos on the worldwide internet right now. This is an entity that has been made a tutorial regarding the demonic operation of a system of surveillance. And this is a mentally ill and incompetent population that seeks to mimic how human beings behave. They are the demon possessed, and they are going to be treated as the incompetent population that they are. Their mental illness is one that threatens other people. They, in other words, engage in what is committing criminal activity based on their demonic, i.e. violent and sexually perverted impulses. Their malicious conduct that is serving toward the demise of another for no reason whatsoever, or for some reason that they find to be substantial, like Satan, the one that is possessing their vessel, which is proven through the pattern of conduct. So you're demon possessed, and in your mind, your demon possession has told you because somebody else married somebody or is having sex with someone, and you wouldn't even know that business, that personal information if you weren't a stalker. But because you are a stalker and you're aware of somebody else's sex life, someone that you want to have a sex life with, because they're in that position, you're going to gang stalk them in order to murder them. Just give you an example. Because someone has 2 kids and you can't have any children, and they're married to someone that would never even give you attention in the first place, because they achieved a position at a job that you want, and you're not even educated and qualified for that position in the first place. None of that matters. Because you are envious, you're stalking that person, you're monitoring that person in order to take their life. And the entity that engages in gang violence makes up the facts and circumstances surrounding that ongoing criminal system with the entity that lies on each other, creates the facts, maintains illusions pertaining to investigations and pertaining to a search for justice in the gang stalking courtrooms. They're all under the fake sun, mimicking what is dictated to us with regard to the protections of the Constitution, and they're not. They're all stalkers. You literally witnessed the entity becoming enraged, and that's the significance of what you saw with regard to numerosity. Not one plane should be flying over here, but you witnessed about 8 to 9 of them. And the entity did that based on understand I am the focus, meaning I control the entity. Based on the truth that I'm exposing to you. So as I speak of the truth, the people of the state, as that one demon in that vehicle is crossing path, not coincidentally, while there should be no planes over here, you're mindful as I contrast that in your mind. Don't forget, what is UPS doing, hovering like you're taking off while I'm at the San Bernardino County TAD office at 1627 West Holt? What is Southwest Airlines doing while I'm inside of the United States Postal Service at 1555 East Holt? Right. And they think that, oh, well, we're right here over. And I can literally tell you what they think because they're idiots. And I've been documenting them, providing what is a study so that all of you understand the inferiority of Satan, who wants to be perceived like a lion. He is not. He is literally an idiot. He's going around trying to sniff out your genitalia and trying to stalk you in places like bathrooms. That's somebody that's entirely mentally ill and perverted. Very demented. Somebody that you, yes, laugh at him because Satan is not any sort of warrior or winner, but it's not funny because you're talking about a population of minds like that, a population that engage in that behavior. And then they want to wear police uniforms and be taken seriously. They want to be in these positions. The only way that occurs is that you do not know about their true nature. You don't know about what they're actually engaging in. That is the entity that is gang stalking. Satan has a whole operation full of the inferior, and they just provided video evidence of that. And they never get smarter. They never get wiser because I'm capturing this psychotic behavior on a daily basis. Literally an hour from now, the same thing over another apartment complex, which is showing you the pattern of conduct. Speaking to what is under all circumstances, there will be no airport. There's not going to be an airport in Ontario, California. It's already over. Let's put it that way. It's already gone. And I will be getting unprecedented damages for what I capture on video in order to inform the world about what the U.S. military, the government, the people of the state of California, the United States has been doing to people for decades. Long before you had an iPhone that could share your ecological address with other people while you're being kept under surveillance, and you basically volunteer information about yourself, participating in the surveillance system, long before that. Okay, this is P.O.C. and I'm documenting all these vehicles around this corner. This is just getting to the immediacy. Nobody has to step outside. They're all being prosecuted, the entire city. The entire city. The entity is frustrated and aggravated by what are the penalties that I am announcing, that I am decreeing. And that's a psychopath. Nobody cares about how mad you are, but you continuously give me evidence serving that very penalty. That's exactly what's going to happen. Involuntary commitments. Regarding those, you can stay in your house all you want to. You can stay in your house all you want to. I know who you are. I know where you're at. And you're being prosecuted right now. You can congregate in church. We already know that you're gang stalking there while you pray to Satan. You're going to be federally prosecuted. It is inevitable. And this is the enforcement of any American citizen's right, in the same way that this is gang stalking all of you. If it's happening to one person, it's happening to all of you. If the public officials, if you're talking about the whole state of California that is necessarily engaged in this. My evidence also shows that. Going from county to county, city to city, including state to state. This is speaking to what's happening throughout the United States. Commercial airline companies that have been murdering people and making money off of that. And then perpetuating the false narrative regarding some accident that has to be investigated, regarding what malfunction occurred that would result in what is a plane crashing into a helicopter over a body of water, or a plane crashing into a building. And you can conduct your own investigation when you look at the newscast. A fake sunset. This is surveillance throughout the United States. They're engaging in what is maintaining criminal surveillance, and they murder people. That's what demons do. There's nothing funny, and there's also nothing intelligent about what I just captured on video. The entity is only, in other words, prosecuting itself because this demonic system is expired. They don't have any authority to do anything. All they are doing is serving to give me more and more money, and serving to be locked up longer and longer. You're not getting out, and that's good. In the end times, you're going to be in prison. Period. Whatever is going to happen in this country, you're going to be locked up during the course of that. Good luck. This is the entity that's engaging in that level of a defeat. That is no small thing, and I want to make sure that you pay attention to that. Go back and look at the video. The moment that the entity is flying in plane, the people of the state are crossing path. They're stalking together. I've shown you that pattern of conduct. They're doing the same thing while they're all in their homes. Do not be distracted with the fact that that demon is in a vehicle crossing path. While I walk past their homes, they're monitoring as well. It's because I captured video, and the demon-possessed who are inherently inferior, you can't do anything about that. That's why I'm standing on a soapbox with a microphone, embarrassing you with the level of evidence. Because Satan thought that no one could see him. Everybody sees you as I expose you. Everyone. And they're infuriated by that. They are the demon possessed. Now, while planes are flying over your home 8 and 9 times, I'm prosecuting you. While the plane is flying over the neighborhood, I'm prosecuting that neighborhood. While the entity has this occurring in any city, I'm prosecuting that city. While the entity is occurring using any airline, I'm using every single airline regarding that pattern of conduct shared by the Ontario International Airport. That is also targeting in every adjacent city as well. This is the entity that is under all circumstances only defeating itself. That's why you had so many planes flying over at an intersection from Fern and Palm in a 7-minute video. Because the entity is enraged by the position that the Lord God himself, Christ Jesus, has relegated the devil to. The Satan cannot win. And Satan is not only caught, this is beyond a prosecution. I've already completed my prosecution. I hope you understand what this is. This is Satan that is at the last moments engaging in what is having a hissy fit, engaging in conduct which is serving to be, you're showing how much in denial you are. You're showing how lawless you are, and how every policy that I have already formulated is exactly what needs to happen. They are aiding the purposes of surrounding the demon-possessed population with policies and laws that are serving to benefit the American public. They're entirely constitutional at that as well, based on what the government itself is doing in concert with the people of the state who are inevitably prosecuted by the entity stalking in commercial airline planes over the neighborhood, over your neighborhood. And contrary to what the demons thought, that's exactly what you don't want the U.S. military doing, flying and stalking somebody where you live, where you work, where you're present, because you're going to be inevitably prosecuted by it. That is the pattern of conduct. where the people of the state constituents are sharing in that criminal system. The entity is engaging in that. That's what I want to make sure that you're witnessing. That is mental illness, and it's called psychopathic pacing. They do that while they are caught as demons, okay? And the entity is engaging in that while they are engaging in what is exposing the people of the state who are being prosecuted. You're on welfare. You're collecting food stamps. You have children that you have in order to receive that government assistance. You're getting none of that. And no children are any basis for the federal government to provide support to a domestic terrorist. That's exactly what you are. You will not be getting that. In fact, they already know that the minor children are engaged in the same criminal pattern of conduct. Terrorists are going to be treated uniformly under the law, and that will not be a basis for you to receive any welfare assistance because you have minor children. And this is, again, changing the landscape regarding the lawless issue here in the background. And then in the future, you're going to want to be considered a benefit regarding entitlements, regarding the assistance that the federal government has the discretion to provide to you. California is established as a domestic terrorist. You're not getting those anymore. You're not getting it anymore. So this is the entity that's engaging in that. And as you admit that you cannot take care of minor children, which is exactly what you're doing when you're applying for aid regarding claiming children that you need assistance with, and you're not getting that assistance as a established domestic terrorist. And as you do so, as one that's an immigrant, this is breaking down that entire corrupt population while they are stalking in 8 or 9 planes at 6 o'clock in the morning, where the airport has no such plane activity. And they're doing so in a location and in a manner which is in conformity to my long documented pattern of conduct. Okay. And if Southwest Airlines has a plane that takes off here, why is Southwest Airlines hovering over my head in Montclair, California, miles away in a whole other city? Just to give you an example, why is Southwest Airlines acting like they're taking off at the United States Postal Service? And if that's the case, then a plane that has progressed beyond that location is still at the same elevation, creating this noise level. You're monitoring, and so are the people of the state. That's why you're maintaining that noise level for the gang stalking purposes of all the people who will not be receiving any assistance from any government entity. You will not. Okay? They hate this country. And this is proven through their behavior. And those that hate this country will not be receiving any assistance. Those that hate this country, do not be deceived. They carry around the American flag. Okay, now that speaks volume to you, whether they actually are aware of the significance or whether you're learning about what the United States is actually designed for in the first place at the outset. Okay, this is the P.O.C. All the people of the state that I'm documenting in the images regarding where I'm at and what the entity is engaging in is shared with regard to the entity that's also on this same street stalking with the peculiarized light. That's also the ongoing pattern of conduct. These are the demons that have served to starve themselves. The government is not the bad person because they're not giving them any food. They're not getting any monetary assistance. They're not getting any sort of aid. They're domestic enemies that are residing in the country. And that's if you're not deported. That's if you're not in prison. Okay, but the government is not wrong for that, and that the government's not a bad entity because of that. You're understanding context. They're not getting anything from the hand of the government. The government will not be supporting domestic terrorists at all. This is P.O.C. The people of the state are cut off. It is currently 6:36 a.m. It's indeed monitoring while the entity is maintaining plane activity and stalking with light. That is one of these demons in the neighborhood that are monitoring. Come outside to aid with what is light activity, the mentally ill behavior of the flashing of light conduct. You also know that when I walk through the neighborhood and the fake sun is over me, this is how you know that they're all engaged in the pattern of conduct, but the entity is very highly unintelligent and gives you a visual in HD. The fact that the neighborhood is stalking because the U.S. military is stalking in that neighborhood. P.O.C. It is currently 6:37 a.m. I'm going to capture these license plates, which is merely a sample regarding the entire city that is surrounded. I don't care if you have your own home that's paid off, and I don't care if you are living outside or in some shelter getting assistance. The entity is going to be entirely cut off and prosecuted uniformly. Okay, the people of the state will also be subject to compensating the targeted individual. All right, that's P.O.C. It is currently 6:37 a.m. Alrighty, this is showing you the neighborhood, the people of the state that are demons engaging in sharing in the pattern of conduct, monitoring. These are enemies of the United States that are going to be specifically documented for purposes of identifying those that are enemies to the country. They're maintaining the light activity while the entity was flying in 9 planes where they're not asleep, monitoring together. Stalking in the vehicle right here. This is P.O.C. I'm going to document all these license plates right now. It's 6:40 a.m. Yeah, sitting in the vehicle, engaging in monitoring with the neighborhood. This is P.O.C. Flying 79137L3, and that's a basis of prison. That's the P.O.C. That's a psychopath driving off when I come and document. These are cowards. They're also sex offenders monitoring vagina in bathrooms, doing so while they're violating you sexually, stalking in the path of light activity. The U.S. military is going to be prosecuted for that. That's the entity that's gang stalking with every police department, with every neighborhood. And the people of the state that are engaging in surveillance in their homes are aiding in that. P.O.C. All right, what you're witnessing is there's no church. There's no genuine church. There certainly is no church over here. These are gang stalking demons that go by the name of U.S.C Church, engaging in criminal activity and then walking in and engaging in the pattern of conduct. These are demons, and you need to know that demons congregate. I just documented gang stalking with the light activity, and you're listening to them monitoring while Union Pacific is amplified plane activity. Those are Satan's servants, and they go under the fake church name U.S.C Church. Satan calls himself a church all the time. But you're going to see the license plates in this video. I'm going to publish this to YouTube, but because I have some audio in it, but the license plates I'm not reading out loud. You'll have to look at them in order to see the identification of the people. Alrighty, I am documenting license plates with regard to the immediacy, the relevant positioning, the zone where I'm at, where the entity is criminally monitoring in concert with the entity that is stalking in commercial airline planes. The series of plane activity is the direct evidence to prosecute the people who, in court, under the law, I'm just letting you know how that kind of case works. They don't have a defense. The people of the state are fully exposed with regard to a prosecution. If you're at your auntie's house on the morning, if you are at the grocery store and then you come out, understand the entities engaging in what is a system, there is never any abandonment of that pattern of conduct, and you are going to be federally prosecuted regardless of what you state at that time. You weren't there and you don't know. You're going to be federally prosecuted, period. The government is serving to prosecute the people, and this is inevitable when you have that criminal conspiracy, and that conspiracy is already established. Okay, so the entity is going to be federally prosecuted under all circumstances. That's the significance of cleaning up and getting all the license plates of everybody that surrounds you while the entity engages in that. If you recall, the entity stalked me by helicopter in Upland, California, and then I went about getting everybody's license plates outside of that venue, at the adjacent venues as well, throughout that entire parking lot. The psychopaths that engage in the criminal activity are then hostile. They're psychotic when you document them. As though the entity is literally, this is again, the mentally ill, the delusional, that behave as though they have a right to engage in it and avoid, by virtue of harassment, being identified. And it's the exact opposite. You're going to be facing prison time, if not already, by virtue of stalking me with a police department. And that's exactly what's happening while the U.S. military are in any city stalking by helicopter. But Marcelo Blanco, Mike LORENZ, they're fully engaged in that. The U.S. military using the Ontario Police Department helicopters, the Ontario Police Department stalking me, and Ontario Police Department helicopters, the U.S. military stalking me in the city of Ontario with the Ontario Police Department in helicopters. This is where you are exercising fictitious authority as having jurisdiction. Be prepared to go to prison, because that's exactly what is going to happen. This is the entity that does so with the people. It's pointing directly at the people, and they just provided 9 planes. And doing so as I begin the documentation, that's when they start that hysteria, that manic conduct. And they're doing so with regard to, that's also speaking to the fact that you are indeed engaged in surveillance. That's the pattern. Once I start opening my mouth and I start speaking, and then it's precipitating planes. Okay. This is the entity that engages in that pattern. And then the ongoing 6th cycle as I document, then are you documenting? Why are you asking me questions that you know the answer to? You're psychotic. And everyone that is watching, and it does matter that everyone is watching, because this is a public prosecution, a public investigation, and everyone is aware of the fact of what is already. This is not a some sort of mysterious, secretive, ongoing process whereby you're getting away with something, and if you interfere in that video that's created right then and there, then you're like, they're delusional. You're going to prison. You're going to prison for everything you say and do. It's already known what the pattern of conduct is. Everything that you say and do. Okay, that's the P.O.C. though. I want to get these license plates because this is, again, a memorial. The entity, it starts stalking with light activity in the path. That's a threat as well. That's speaking to the entire neighborhood already. You already had 9 planes, then you have a demon come outside just flashing light in the path. That's the same evidence incriminating all of them, many of whose license plate I just documented. Pacing, license 5DXF 462. Union Pacific is also monitoring. P.O.C. This is the entire neighborhood. This is the fake churches like Vos Church at Holt and Vine Avenue. The entity is going to be federally prosecuted. All the benefits, the tax benefits that terrorists like Vos Church receive, they're going to be prosecuted for that. They're going to purge that. You're going to pay that back. You're being paid to engage in terrorism. You're being paid to indoctrinate. Satanic indoctrination, by the way, anti-American propaganda while you're engaging in the pattern of conduct, by the way. You are infiltrating a false religion while you engage in the pattern of conduct, and you will not be receiving any sort of benefits received like gang stalkers that get a tax benefit for maintaining these sort of venues that are highly deceptive for the U.S. government's purposes. They're going to fork that over. They're going to purge that. They're going to be liable for it, like Vos Church, who was in the parking lot gang stalking me, engaging in surveillance in their vehicles. Their gang stalking church attendees are serving in the pattern of conduct and furtherance of murdering an American citizen. You're going to purge that over, and I'm also going to criminally prosecute Satan's church so that you do not get confused about who Christ is, because that's what Satan's job is, for you to associate and be confused by and be harmed by, deterred from following Christ Jesus, who has nothing to do with what Satan is doing with the name of Christ. The two are not the same. This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:49 a.m. Alrighty, the downfall of the expired system of gang stalking, which is criminal surveillance by the U.S. military. The U.S. military that never thought that you would be able to put together the fact that it is behind what is harassment by the people who are before you, around you. It's government action, and it's subservient to a government system. It is axiomatic. In other words, it is automatic. The Stater Brothers grocery store, they are the demons that are stalking in their homes. They're doing it now inside of a grocery store, and they are engaged in psychopathic pacing in a building. Just as you are witnessing the psychopathic pacing in planes, that's what they do on the ground. That's what they do with regard to my movement, my operation of my device. They're doing it in engineer light. They're doing it while they're triggered as I speak the truth about what they are and what they're doing. They do it while they are focusing on me. This is worship by demon. This is idolatry. In other words, while you call yourself stalking somebody and supposedly making them feel bad about themselves, what the demons are actually doing, what Satan is actually doing, is worshiping you, and also altering your ability to recognize that. This isn't a basis that should make you feel good about yourself either, because who you are and how you love yourself shouldn't be based on anybody outside of Christ Jesus, your creator, who lets you know who you are and your value. Okay, but just to let you know, this is based on what is worshiping you. They are at your altar gang stalking you. Okay, so the entity is engaging in that, and Stater Brothers is fully engaged in that pattern of conduct. So that is speaking to everybody that engages in presence at the venue, everybody that is engaging in what is concerted activity with that entity, that's doing so outside of the doors of any venue, including the heavily documented Stater Brothers. Stater Brothers will be no more. Okay, the people of the state are going to be compensated. It's not just the deep pockets of a venue, but it's also going to be the people of the state that are going to compensate. And whether you're collecting food stamps or not, I just want to let you know there's a little thing called restitution. So being broke and gang stalking is not going to be a means, well, I guess I can't pay the targeted individual the federally mandated fee for gang stalking them. That's not how that works. And this is why the ignorant shouldn't be engaging in this conduct, because they're going to pay while they're stalking me in the parking lot, tracking my steps. Okay, engaging in that also while they are engaging in surveillance in the parking lot. This is all conduct of Stater Brothers, in the same way that it's all state action. And getting in and out of the venue, making purchases, is criminal activity while they're engaging in that. And all the plain activity that I just documented in the neighborhood is serving to prosecute Stater Brothers, because there's no end to that pattern of conduct. Yes, you are gang stalking me as an establishment. That's why I'm subject to this at B Street and Fern. And this is also relevant to everything that you're saying and doing at that venue, by the way, where I'm showing you a fake sun that remains over the Stater Brothers. In fact, with the vagina monitor, with the cursed womb, the overweight, box-shaped female that is gang stalking, walking out of the entrance, engaging in what is the admitted stalking conduct by virtue of their system, I am prosecuting. I'm using their own unintelligent devices against them. You engage in what is stalking in the path. That makes it so easy for me to document you. I'm referring to the demon 8 Yolanda Nancy Charlie 992. Stalking with the same Ontario International Airport and the Ontario Fire Department, as you're aware of, at 12 o'clock in the afternoon when the fake sun is nowhere in Upland, California. It's not over the roof of the demons, Alan and Elizabeth and Carissa and Kiki and the Alyssa, that all the employees that are under that fake sun. It's over me in Upland, which is speaking to 8YNC 992, serving as system and furtherance of my murder. That's what's relevant and what's so creepy about her being in the back of the parking lot in a hot vehicle, while the fake sun is over me at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and the Ontario Fire Department that are not engaged in firefighting, they're engaged in stalking. Are engaging in what is walking in the path. You know that they're doing so pursuant to what is staging. Everything that they're doing is pursuant to what is timed concerning me. So they're worshiping me while they walk out of Stater Brothers at 12 o'clock in the afternoon when I'm walking on the sidewalk at the same venue where the fake sun has documented rising and setting. And they're doing so while the entity is stalking by the Ontario International Airport in that environment. Just so that you know, this is the entity that's already surrounded by that. So while they are in the venue, sitting in their vehicles, engaging in surveillance, doing so while they are aware, because they're hostile, whatever their emotional issues are, you're going to prison. The employees are going to prison at Stater Brothers. License 8 USV 688. License 7 Uncle Indiana Paul 413. License plate 9 Xavier Uncle Henry 609. 7 Charlie Kelly Sam 778. 8 Edward Yolanda 240. 9 Charlie Sam Victor 685. All right, Stater Brothers is headquartered in San Bernardino, California. Pardon me. And the entity is maintaining this pattern of conduct where I'm at right now, 646 West Holt Boulevard in Ontario, California. The pattern of conduct is shared by the Stater Brothers in Fontana, California. Pay attention to what Mr. David Fugate is engaging in at the Stater Brothers, where, by the way, there's only one airport. This isn't coming from LA, and they're also not coming from San Bernardino Airport. Where is the, what airport is Amazon Prime taking off from when they're hovering over me at the Stater Brothers in Fontana? Which you'll see that on April 14th, which is published online. And the demons that are admittedly engaging in psychopathic behavior, like I just documented, begin flying, stalking in a plane over this parking lot, which is no distraction. It's ongoing confirmation. David Fugate and David Quinones. Exhibit A, pay attention. P.O.C. Now, while you're in the parking lot, pursuant to the U.S. military's unintelligent and expired system, I just want to be clear, you are being prosecuted. While you're in your homes, pursuant to the U.S. military's expired criminal pattern of conduct, I just want you to understand you're being prosecuted. While you're inside of the establishment, while the U.S. military is engaging in its criminal and expired pattern of conduct, you are being prosecuted. Okay? That's P.O.C. The entity is engaging in what is no legitimate business, no constitutionally protected establishment whatsoever. This is all being prosecuted. It's all criminal activity, all of it. All of it is filthy. And not only that, it's stupid. It's idiotic on top of that. It's idiotic. David Fugate is sharing in the same pattern of conduct as David Quinones. Stater Brothers is sharing the pattern of conduct in Fontana, sharing the pattern of conduct in Chino, sharing the pattern of conduct with the Stater Brothers that is off of 4th Street, documented them as well. Fake sun over me in that parking lot. What point is that going to happen when the fake sun has a matter of documentation through screenshots where you can easily see it's over me at 6 in the morning and it's still over me at the same parking lot at 5 in the evening. So when is it going to be at the 4th Street? When is it moving to do that? And it's not over 4th Street and then being aimed precisely over me under a covered structure at the entrance where David Quinones is gang stalking by a means of employment. When is that happening? How does that happen? It doesn't. But for the pattern of conduct, as I've shown that to you. So the entity is engaging in this conduct, and they're doing so while their expired engagement, their dangerous and self-destructive engagement in that which they are doing so as clearly as walking around nude. They're engaging in what is clearly criminal and overtly obvious activity. 8 Apple Xavier Nancy 261, 5 Mary Paul Kelly 388. They're doing so while the entity flies over. And what are they triggered by? Let me repeat it again. David Fugate and David Quinones is sharing the pattern of conduct in Fontana, while Amazon Prime is not coming from any airport, just like they are not while I'm in the neighborhood at B Street in between Palm and Vine Avenue, Palm and Fern. They're not coming from an airport there either. And on April 14th, which you'll see published yesterday being May 16th, you will see Amazon Prime, which is my gang stalker. Amazon Prime, which has been engaged in the conspiracy to murder me, and Amazon Prime is being thereby prosecuted. Amazon Prime is also a template for prosecuting anybody for gang stalking. All right, the entity's engaging in this, and Amazon Prime is targeting me also at Stater Brothers in this parking lot, by the way. And Amazon Prime is prosecuted even by virtue of you hearing the plane activity as I refer to Amazon Prime, that where there are no airports where you're taking off from, that would include flying over the parking lot at 8228 Sierra Avenue in Fontana, California, where the fake sun is over me at 7:30 in the morning. And Amazon Prime is also over me in that parking lot of Stater Brothers, where there's a pattern of targeting me with planes and helicopters, the police, the fire, and the ambulance, which they are not actual police. They're not engaged in ambulance services. They are not firefighters. But for purposes of using words so that you can understand the public corruption and the agencies that are engaged in serving the beast system, which is satanic means of surveillance, they're monitoring when they sound their sirens. They're not headed to an emergency that they're learning about. They're engaged in criminal monitoring. It's monitoring that is facilitating a population that's engaging in monitoring as well. The entity is using that with regard to the pattern of conduct. And Amazon Prime is stalking me in the parking lot of Fontana, California under the fake sun at 7:30 a.m. where David Fugate is engaged in what is that P.O.C. as well. I just want to be clear, Stater Brothers and Fontana also engage in what is poisoning food product that I purchased at that venue. David Fugate is a named defendant. That is, I just want to be clear right there, federal prison. There's no mystery here about anything that's going to happen. Anything. I maintain it in a public manner because Satan is being publicly exposed. Publicly exposed, publicly prosecuted. Open, wide exposure. Okay, so the entity that's engaging in this is doing so, and they're doing so pursuant to its own demise. You expose everybody in the neighborhood, you expose everybody pertaining to that business, you expose everybody in that city while you gang stalk me. There is no route to successfully engaging in that whatsoever, and moreover, you're not getting any money, you're giving over all of your money. And justice is that you pay so many damages that you cannot afford to survive. Justice is that your reputation commercially is so wide known and understood that you cannot survive. No one would ever be associated with that brand anymore because of what you are responsible for engaging in. That's justice. That would be applauded internationally. Okay? Terrorism is not only un-American, it's anti-human. It's inhumane. Okay? But it is entirely un-American. Un-American. You have the audacity to be in America making money while you're keeping your customer under surveillance, and you despise that customer of yours. The true sentiments of these demonic companies need to be known while you're giving them your money, and they're gang stalking me. They're engaging what is gang stalking you. Stater Brothers is fully prosecuted. Every employee is a vagina monitoring sex offender, and they're subject to federal prison. Systematic monitoring. As clearly as you hear the entity stalking me by planes in this well, I've documented a helicopter, but in these planes, as I refer to something that they're triggered by, it's not a tactic, it's not smart. You just flew over it with 9 planes. It's not a tactic and it's not smart. It does not make it look like you're not stalking. That's what you're supposed to be doing, right? You're supposed to, because the more that you engage in it, the more it seems like it's casual and it's not criminal. And because you're not afraid to do it out in the open, there's nothing wrong with it. No, that is entirely false logic. You're going to prison. You're an idiot. License 9, Robert Larry Wendy 306. License Edward Paul 58 Sam 02. That's a paper plate on a Chevy white pickup truck. A Chevy, that's a Silverado. These are employees that are parked in the venue monitoring. And Stater Brothers is stalking while the airport is stalking me in the parking lot of Stater Brothers. Stater Brothers is stalking while the people of the state are at Stater Brothers stalking. Stater Brothers is stalking while the entity keeps the specific environment over me at Stater Brothers. Stater Brothers is stalking while the people of the state are engaging what is crossing path like they are on Euclid Avenue, on San Antonio Avenue, on HOLT Boulevard, on Bonita, in the back of the street, the back streets around. They're engaging in stalking. Stater Brothers is maintaining that criminal pattern of conduct. And Stater Brothers, in other words, there is no route to escaping it. There's no route to escaping liability. There is, while you were busy monitoring my vagina, the legal theory has been completed. I'm going to let you know right now, there is no attorney that has any legal argument that is going to work. I've already won, and court is what matters. You are already surrounded. I just want to be clear on that. And if I said that you're going to prison, I'm giving you advance notice because you're going to prison. This is P.O.C. It is currently 7:06 a.m. It is currently 8:30 a.m. I'm inside of facilitating venue Stater Brothers at 646 West Holt Boulevard, where you are putting all of the puzzles of the pieces of the puzzle, together And you're doing so with my leading. I'm showing you this is what I was documenting. This is how this is connected to what seems like it's something else different. And it's not. It's the same ceaseless pattern of conduct. And this is how then you are understanding the entity that's gang stalking me in San Bernardino is gang stalking me in Fontana, and gang stalking me in Ontario, and gang stalking me in Montclair and Pomona, and gang stalking me on the freeway as I am gang stalked in Las Vegas, Nevada. The entities engaging in this pattern of conduct, and they are literally inside of the grocery store stalking, following me around, and doing so pursuant to when I see a person that walks by, when I hear noise that's created, and they're doing so again under the guise of what's being in a grocery store. So the stalkers carrying flowers, the stalkers carrying boxes, and that's because they're engaged in what is necessarily interfering with the business and engaging in what is typically done outside of business hours, so that you're not blocking customers, so that you're not filling the aisles. But they're doing those unprofessional things because they are monitoring its activity creation. The entity, just because you are free to engage in it, meaning, and you're not free under the Constitution, but just because there's no law that says you have to complete inventory before customers enter the venue does not mean that it's not readily identifiable as criminal activity within the pattern of conduct, and it is a crime. I'm also showing you how it's relevant to what are poor business practices, and their business practices are so poor because they're monitoring. You have absolutely poor business practices, even if you weren't blocking the aisles and interfering with customers that would ordinarily or under all other circumstances purchase that product that wasn't blocked by all of the boxes that you keep there so that you can monitor the customers. The entity is engaging in this sort of conduct while they are being targeted with the evidence that surrounds me as I arrive to the venue. And this is the entity that is indeed humiliated. These are not humans that are following me around. These are zombies. What are zombies when you're looking at them in Hollywood pics and on Netflix and on TV? A zombie is nothing other than a hyperbolic description of the personification of demon possession. It's a dead person. The demon possessed are telling you what they are. They're dead. Okay. They are engaging in what is walking around with paper wrapped around them. It's not funny, but it's made comical when they are depicting themselves. Zombies are a means of the personification of exactly what they are. They know that they're dead. Now you know that they're dead. While they're inside of buildings like the grocery store stalking, they're in ridiculous light. They're engaging in ridiculously poor business practices while they are stalking one person altogether, and the one person that they're stalking is prosecuting all of them, while they are again so dead, so delusional that they don't understand that they are in the middle of the trap that was laid at the and they're still following the trap. So whose fault is it when you fall off that precipice to your own demise and everyone witnesses that? Is that person being ruthless, or are you being subject to the so-called trap that you laid for someone else and you find yourself subject to it? Who is the bad guy there? If there is some sort of proverbial bad guy in the first place, it's called justice. And the entity is inside of a grocery store stalking me. They're doing so in impossible light activity. There's no artificial light bulb of any shape or any hue that creates the impossible light activity where they are walking around in the aisles, monitoring my person as zombies. These are not people, they're demon possessed. And this is Stater Brothers is being prosecuted for it. And the evidence follows me, and the evidence follows them, where they are already prosecuted by the time, as I encounter you, you're prosecuted. It's literally that automatic. Okay, the government that's engaging in gang stalking should have never done it on camera. Okay, it is P.O.C. It's 8:35 a.m. And I've been uploading, downloading, publishing, and the entity is just engaging in what is following around. They are cockroaches and they're children. Understand, you need to take your emotions out of it. You're dealing with, not stating that it is then accountable, because we are not like the wicked engaging in things like genocide because they're all demon possessed. But what they will be subject to, they will be separated from the American people, from human beings that they are a threat to. That is because of the behavioral health issues that causes them to, even in the face of consequences and exposure. That's the last thing that demon ever wants, by the way. The demon inside of them does not want to be exposed. That demon in the face of exposure becomes maniacal. Obsessive. In other words, I don't care about the consequences. I'm going to keep doing it now. That was always the mindset, the mental illness at the beginning. I've shown it to you so that it is no longer hidden. And the entity that is in the grocery store is engaging in that conduct, while the evidence is always going to be, it's always going to be published. Okay, the entity is the one that tries to go behind my back and accessing my evidence, which you're going to prison for that. You will pay me damages for it. You're going to be subject to what is prison, where you were perhaps otherwise being prosecuted merely as a domestic terrorist. And I don't mean merely because that's a small thing, but I mean now you're doing time for it. You will not, under any circumstances, disregard, disrespect, or interfere with an investigation or prosecution of yourself. This is the government. This is the government that's, again, full of demons, cockroaches. And they are having the audacity to interfere with their own exposure. And you're not on earth, not in reality, you're not going to do that. So you have what is within this entity that is a bunch of zombies serving what is the prosecution, and it is a matter of humiliating Satan, which is exactly what you must do when you're dealing with the demon possessed, when you're dealing with Satan. All right, this is the P.O.C. This is the entity that is stalking in the grocery store, and they're doing so on behalf of the federal government that's stalking while they are engaging in that pattern of conduct. The dead are those that are speaking to what is the absence of any reasoning. They also have an absence of purpose. They don't have a purpose. Understand their purpose is to stalk other people, to monitor other people, to sit around obsessing over other people. That's a threat to you. Okay? And they're doing that in the face of being told, and they have been told in the spiritual realm, and you're witnessing a prosecution. And even before the prosecution got to the point to where it is now, the demons were warned. Okay? So only a fool is going to defy a supernatural warning, and the consequences for that, they are self-induced. Okay, the harm suffered are self-induced. This is the entity that's engaged in that. And in other words, I hate to, but this is the reality. The demon-possessed have vowed to the death. They're going to continue engaging in that which they were never going to be successful in, to the death. They're willing to die over it. And that's exactly what's happening. And I mean a physical death, because they're already dead. They're already dead. Okay, death is also a very much spiritual thing. Understand that. Death is a part of physical life, but death is also spiritual. The demon-possessed are dead. That's what's personified in Hollywood flicks when you're watching movies about zombies. And that is very much demons who are telling you their own biography. They make it entertaining. They make it seductive. They make it funny. They make it whatever it is that is making them money. But there's actually nothing funny about it. And it's quite pathetic. Okay, the entities engage in this while they surround what is public corruption, because that's what is underway when a government is engaging in criminal activity in concert with a population, and doing so in concert with one another. And the entity is engaging in this to the demise of American citizens. And it is literally antithetical to the whole purpose, the foundation of the very Constitution, that none of them are protected or authorized by and under. All right, this is P.O.C. So it's 8:39 a.m. and I am publishing my evidence for May 17, 2026. Uploading, if you paid attention, there were several videos missing from May 15th, 2026. That's just me. I'm updating my evidence. They didn't steal it from me. But I'm publishing it, updating the record, and the entity is just pacing all around. They're like cockroaches. They are cockroaches in the spirit. So they come around the corner, stand around, stare at the beans on the aisle as I open up a new website, as I open up a new tab, as I begin uploading, as the file finishes downloading. They're like cockroaches. If you've seen a cockroach that comes from out of a corner or underneath. And I have not, I'm not, just to be clear, I'm not accustomed to living amongst cockroaches. So that's not why I use that, because I know it so well, because I live that way. It's just that I'm aware of how pests behave. So I just want to give some context, okay? I've never lived in cockroach infested type of circumstance, and God bless those that have. Not judging, but I'm just stating. I just want to be clear, because I use that example a lot, so I just want to clarify. But anyway, if you are familiar with how roaches behave, they are hidden. They like to be hidden. Okay, so you can clean your house and keep everything clean and whatnot, but you leave some food out, those roaches will come right out immediately, because they're there the whole time. When you've got an infestation, you have to have an extermination in order to get rid of that, and you have to maintain a pattern of cleanliness until they understand they will not get anything from there. You have to keep that clean, and then also everybody around you has to be kept clean. That's why you can't control that. If you keep your apartment clean, your filthy neighbors downstairs will cause roaches to be inside of your home, et cetera, and that's why you have a lot of laws. But anyway, I digress. The entity is behaving like the cockroaches that they are. Okay, so while it appears as though They're just engaging in randomness, okay? Because you're not seeing strings coming down from the sky, or rather strings coming up from underneath the ground, because they are provoked and personifying hell, okay? But they are, or rather, you're not seeing strings from the U.S. military that are stalking in the sky space above me, or strings coming from the fake sun over all of them, because they're all, you're talking about the demon possessed, they're all puppets, okay? They're all stalking me, they're all targeting me, and this is real life. So you've seen movies that are personified, the living dead, zombies. This is a personification of what the entity is actually doing. You've been told for a long time what's been going on, and this is Satan that does it in front of your face. And the entity also has derived a sense of being elite and being above and being almost godlike, because they think that they thought for a long time that they can do that. And because they've done that, because they've made money and basically told what they've been doing through movies, through entertainment, that they are above and that they are getting, and none of that, all of that is a lie out of the pit of hell. Okay, so anyway, the entities engaging in conduct like roaches, they are always present. They're stalking all the time. Now, you come and once you smell a cookie, a roach smells a cookie or a crumb, or you engage in something, you make a loud noise and you startle the roach, you'll see them come out of nowhere, from hiding, right? And then they're just stand there. If you've seen a roach comes out and they just stand, they sit still for a long time. And they move, whatever causes them to move at the moment that they start moving. They move quickly and then they stop. And they move in another direction and then they stop. Or they move and they go into hiding again. That's what the demon possessed do, and they're doing it based on what is monitoring. They do that without talking to you. They don't look at you. They may engage in talking to you. They're doing it while you're in traffic. They're doing it while you're in the grocery store. They're doing it while you're in the bathroom. They don't have to talk to you because they're engaging in what is activity all around you, and they're doing it on behalf of the government that is also proven, just like the evidence today shows, is stalking, targeting you. While you are monitoring, that is synonymous with stalking. All right, it is stalking and monitoring, because the entity that is monitoring is following you around. They're following you in the environment. You are stalking under a fake sun. It is surveillance. You are stalking where the environment is conducive for everybody to keep you under surveillance. You are stalking. The entity is very ignorant, but this is very plain, very obvious. Nothing about it is elite. Nothing about it is sophisticated. Nothing about it is intricate, complicated, hidden. And they're so idiotic, they're sloppy with it. They lose control because they are indeed mentally ill. And I'm using their mental illness for your benefit so that you can see how dangerous they are based on their stupidity. Not because but you're talking about the stupid with weapons are equally threatening as those that would be highly intelligent and strategic and tactical. This is not that. But they are engaging in what is targeting American citizens, and the demon possessed have for a long time thought that this was a numbers game, and it is not. Christ Jesus is outside of time, sitting on the throne, giving Satan rope to hang himself, and he is only permitted to do that which he is doing with full knowledge of the Lord God. It is not his will, it is not his doing, but this is evil. By the way, this is sin. People that choose to walk in these paths, God is not to blame for what man has done. But God has said that you will not be permitted to do this forever. You're doing and you do it to your own demise. Not only that, he's merciful, and he will even give the wicked a warning. Now, Satan, that is here to deceive, he's the deceiver. He knows that he's given so much leeway, and he is deceiving all of his followers. They think that they're going to come. You think that you're stealing from people, that you're a celebrity that's monitoring other people when you hold concerts in other parts of the world. You're targeting with the U.S. military. You're targeting people, stealing from them, stealing their intellectual property as a monitoring spirit, all the ways in which they engage in spiritually attacking people and committing criminal acts with regard to what is this treasonous system. Celebrities are engaging in this. They're not creative. They're demons. And this is the entity that chooses those that are of that position, by the way. And you can see that they're demons, by the way. I'm not going to go into that. I'm not going to drop any names, but they are familiar with my vagina. They've been monitoring. They're sitting up watching me on the internet, and the Lord God is watching them. Okay, and this is a warning to all of them with regard to this. You are of the same spirit, the same criminal conduct, and you don't have to come to the ghetto in downtown San Bernardino for me to prosecute you. Okay, for you to be subject to the same judgment. Understand that this is a declaration to that demonic spirit, all of you. While I make an example out of those in Ontario, California, I hope you're not missing that. Okay? This is speaking to the fact that you cannot wage war against Christ Jesus. You cannot. And you will not go about acting like you're going to, or behaving as though that's going to be acceptable. You're not even going to be permitted to behave in that manner, and it's for everybody else's benefit to watch you suffer the consequences, because it is not going to be tolerated, period. The entities engaging in this pattern of conduct, and they're doing so while they are behaving like cockroaches while I'm in operation of my device. You're stalking me. The system is fully being documented while they are being then exposed as I'm putting it on the internet, and then like the cockroaches that come around the corner out of hiding, like a roach coming out of the crevices underneath your cabinets, and they're sitting there monitoring, and they're doing so in a grocery store within the context how they're expected to engage in that. And who are you fooling when you're doing that, by the way? Who are you fooling? All right? The entities engaging in this level of desperation, they don't care that they are the blatant stalkers that they are. They don't care that they are going, everybody that works at the Stater Brothers is subject to prison. They don't care. Okay? It's the same thing with the demon stalking in commercial airline companies. You will care when you are bankrupted. You will care when you're going from being being at the head of the ownership, the shareholders, and the head of the CEO of a company, and you find out that you're subject to prison. Oh my goodness. You'll care then. You will care. But this is the entity that's engaged in this level of conduct. It's going from the ghettos, where these people that think that they're above and they can control. No, you don't control anything. You clearly can't even control your mind. You don't control anything, and the prosecution is showing that it is putting Satan in his place. This is a spirit. All right? And the entities engaged in what is entirely pathetic. I do not respect it in the first place, but let alone you're looking at how pathetic they are. It's pathetic. You're on your belly crawling around following me everywhere, including in the bathroom. You have to sit up and act like you're not even doing it. And then not only that, everybody is watching you in that horrible performance, and you are looking like a loser because you have to act like gang stalking. The whole system in and of itself, I'm going to say the word, is retarded. It's absolutely retarded. This is an entity that is under no circumstances gangster, under no circumstances reputable, under no circumstances respectable, under no circumstances elite. No, being a sex offender, being a stalker, being a thief, being a criminal. None of that is sexy. It's not. And it's entirely pathetic, by the way. Entirely pathetic. But this is the entity that engages in that, and this is how that system operates. So they're in the grocery store stalking. And this is the true purpose of what's going on throughout the country. Businesses are created in order to engage in an illusion, that's a deceptive means of ongoing surveillance by a government at all places and at all times, and they do profit off of it. But the only purpose, everything that's going on in the United States is with regard to what is surveillance, and it's satanic. Okay, and it's the time that they could do that and that this could go on with the people being ignorant is no more. That's gone. Okay, and the time that you thought that you were going to silence somebody who was you're delusional, and you're going to prison for that. And there's a lot of people going to prison. There are people that are outside of the United States that are going to prison. They're sitting up listening. There are people whose name I know. I've embarrassed them and called them out. They're going to prison. You're going to federal prison. Okay, and the people, the entity, the government that you thought they're getting you every single day. It's an ongoing. If there were a trial every day to try to redeem yourself, you're going every single day. You're going to prison. It's like adjudicating the issue over and over. You're going to prison. That's why you're relying on my character. That's why. That's how you were able to even be in that setting and engage in that ridiculous level of corrupt. How does you even come up? Because the government is engaging in criminal monitoring, and the government has targeted the absolutely wrong person. Okay, this is P.O.C. Stater Brothers is engaging in surveillance, and while weirdos stalk you, that is a basis to recover from a corrupt establishment such as Stater Brothers. And it is justice that damages create bankruptcy. And bankruptcy, not that you're going to, like Donald Trump, generate wealth from, abuse the system. It's bankruptcy that's going to serve in your permanent demise, the removal of that business for being a terrorist as well. Okay, but this is P.O.C. It is currently 8:50 a.m. and it is May 17, 2026. Inside of what is 646 West Holt Boulevard, where the criminal pattern of conduct follows me. The entities engaged, meaning the stalkers follow into the grocery store. So obviously this is all that's happening So you're looking at, I have shown the evidence to where you are sure of that, and you're not being brainwashed, you're not being misled and deceived into thinking and believing that absent any evidence. No, they're stalking. So I go into the grocery store and they're stalking. So what you're doing is you're sitting up and learning, and you are sitting up like, wow, they're stalking when they're walking in the store with their 2 kids, and she's pregnant and she's staring at the chicken parmigiana bowl, and she's actually stalking. Yes, that's all they're doing, and it's pathetic. Alrighty, this is P.O.C. It's currently 8:51 a.m. Okay, the demon in the Tesla is stalking. I'm going to document that license plate. And this is what the entity does as the evidence is published against them and they continue stalking. That's relevant to the way in which you're going to be prosecuted, civilly and criminally. This is an entity that is engaging in sacrificing itself and its own freedoms that are going to be stripped, and entitlements and benefits that they will not enjoy. They being the people. License 81485. That's a black Yukon, gang stalking at what are the venues, whether they're open or closed, are being prosecuted. And this is the entity that is engaging in the pattern of conduct. This is the same Asian female gang stalking with Ontario police. She is subject to prison. I documented her gang stalking while the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct. License 9UZW308. She's still acting in furtherance as though you're going to persist in targeting someone in order to murder them, and there's not going to be any consequence. And if she is an immigrant, meaning she's not born in the United States, and she is from some other Asian country, and she immigrated to the United States, she's being deported. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:18 a.m. P.O.C. Clearly, I don't need it. But first off, that is Alaska Airlines. Second of all, pay attention to where I am and where the entity is. They're stalking. This is all stalking by the airport that's being shut down. The U.S. military is being prosecuted for treason, and so are the people. But when I'm in the parking lot of the fake church where I'm headed toward, that's when they're doing cartwheels, flying in this direction, going back in that way. The reason why they're here and not flying right over my head here is because the entity is stalking. What is the tactic of the U.S. military stalking me in commercial planes? It is to maintain presence on the south side of my person. They are on the south side of me as I continue walking in this direction. As I get to the parking lot where they're stalking, the U.S. military stalking me in commercial airline planes. Those are totally empty planes. No passengers on the planes. They're stalking me in these commercial planes. While I'm at the, zoom in, that fake church, Bethel congregation, where they're flying over this building when I'm at the side of that building, stalking by helicopter, stalking by military aircraft, and stalking by commercial plane. All right, when I'm at the side of that church, at the top of the staircase, and they're flying, not here. They're flying much closer south of my person. While I'm in the parking lot at the curb area where they're stalking at F Street, at Lemon and F Street on Euclid, driving through the parking lot, engaging in surveillance like Pastor Jeanette is in the parking lot while the entity is flying over that parking lot. They're not doing so north of my person. They're always doing so south of my person. And Alaska Airlines has 0 planes that will ever be anything other than evidence to have the entire airport shut down. And Alaska Airlines prosecuted for treason, a corporate entity engaging in terrorism with the U.S. military and furtherance of murdering an American citizen, that it is knowingly and continuously stalking. All right, it is currently a 9:49 a.m. That's P.O.C. while the entity is stalking me while I'm going to the venue where they are also stalking, and they are stalking inside of fake churches throughout the state of California. That is, those that are claiming the name of Christ under the umbrella of the name of Christ, they are engaging in all manner of hurting you, misrepresenting Christ in doing so, and they're going to face judgment for that. But what you're witnessing is the evidence that they that claim that they know Christ, that does not mean that that is the case. And you cannot go around living in transgression and in sin, harboring wicked in your heart, hating other people, engaging in what is even criminal conduct, which is sin, and then claiming that you're a Christian at the same time. You are also not engaging in that while you are under any circumstances changed while you walk inside of a building where you just plaster the word church on the outside of it. These are not churches. This is not the church of the Lord Jesus Christ. None of them are. That's the purpose of this investigation as well. Okay, the entity has sought to sanitize its appearance by hiding under religion, which is what the wicked do. They practice religion. They do not know Christ. This is the P.O.C. The Bible says that you will know them, and you will know them by their gang stalking deeds. Okay, I'm adding the word gang stalking, obviously, but you will know them by their fruits. Nobody that knows Christ is engaging in the demonic conduct of monitoring, and they're doing it while I'm inside of the building. It is an act of hatred against Christ. This is spiritual. It's demonic. This is what you need to understand. I don't care how big that church is. I don't care how well known that pastor's name is. I don't care if that pastor is included in the inauguration of a United States president. I'm showing you what it is. God is no respecter of persons. And I'm very well versed in the demons that engage in gang stalking in this manner. They all serve the same devil. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:51 a.m. This is P.O.C. This is the entity gang stalking, maintaining serial flight, doing the people of the state. The entity that's engaging in this is doing it at the Ontario Senior Center. This is the means of what is terrorism, and that's why the senior center is going to be defunded while they are engaging in that pattern of conduct and further murder. That's what this is. This is the pattern of conduct. The entities engaging in this also by helicopter, very hostile. While you will see on YouTube videos are being published regarding April 14, 2026. The entity that's the U.S. military gang stalking with those over the age of well over the age of majority, but you're the senior citizens that are engaging in what is targeting and furtherance of murder. Very malicious, while the entity uses minor children, for example, uses the senior citizen community, uses the government. This is the Civic Center, where the entity is engaging in that. Because of the use of venues that are funded by the government, they will be defunded. And that's the entity that's engaged in that. It is currently, by the way, 3:47 p.m. The entity is engaging in what is stalking me by helicopter. That's the same U.S. military, and Mike LORENZ is going to federal prison for it. The entity is doing so with the intent to obstruct justice while they are monitoring what it is that I'm publishing on the venue of the internet, which is not stopping the evidence. It is evidence that the entity is indeed engaged in criminal surveillance on the venue of the internet. Okay, this is P.O.C. The entity is engaging in what is unlawful threat. Again, the legal standard is reasonable fear, not actual fear. The entity is gang stalking with those that are senior citizens and does so while they represent the government that engages in kidnappings pursuant to what is not even actually happening, malicious assertions, while you are targeting me in concert with that U.S. military that has exhibited severe mental instability, and they do so out of acts of desperation while the evidence, as you are witnessing, is still going on the internet. This is P.O.C. It is currently 3:48 p.m. It's exactly how those defendants are going to be federally prosecuted. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, it is currently, by the way, I just want to capture because this is capturing the essence of mental illness by demons that are stalking in this obsessive manner. P.O.C. Alright, up here above. This is what is inspiring the U.S. military to begin stalking by helicopter. This is criminal monitoring federal stalking under Title 18, Section 22618, subsections 1 and 2. The entity is flying over the top of my head, very targeted. They're flying over the top of my head over the library where I'm over here reviewing the evidence that is preparing to be published regarding that department and that entity, the people of the state, who are engaging in surveillance right over here, a lurker, a vagina monitor, stalking, doing so in furtherance of murder, serial stalking. You're going to go from sleeping outside to sleeping in federal prison, engaging what is a battery also. Don't forget about hitting on me at the church, the Methodist church, while he's stalking with the police. This is federal prison. The entity is monitoring on my device, stalking conspicuously, doing so at the facilitating of the Ontario Senior Center, John Stewart Company, the senior citizens that are gang stalking, that are not disturbed, not complaining about the military hovering over the venue, the senior citizen complex, where they are in violation of literally the right to quiet enjoyment. That's because they are demons gang stalking while the entity has helicopter and plane activity where there's no airports taking off. With that level of frequency that I'm showing you, the pictures that I'm taking, just like they were doing at the Ontario Village Shopping Center, they're doing over the Senior Center, this is going to be defunded. This is a venue of terrorism. The Ontario City Hall is a venue of terrorism, is going to be defunded. The entity's gang stalking with the John Stewart, the John Stewart Senior Citizen Company, and as I publish evidence about demons gang stalking with minors, they replicate what it is that they're monitoring online. This is the entity that is engaged in that pattern of conduct, and this is good for you to understand how Satan operates. Okay, that's the P.O.C. The entity is engaged in this. What do you think is happening while the police are flying by helicopter, and you think that it's smart to go by with your stroller? This is informing you about the mentally ill. These are the demons that are exposing themselves. These are the demons that are going to be in courtrooms crying about, please don't take my kids, please don't deport me out of the country, please don't rule me to be unfit, please don't commit me to this institution, please don't put me in prison, please don't cease to give me government assistance, etc. This is the entity that's engaging in that. The entity is engaging in this while they are monitoring on the venue of the internet. This is called stalking with light. This is the same venue where the entity is keeping the fake sun rising and setting over me. These are stalkers tracking my steps, both on foot in strollers where the entity is maintaining psychopathic pacing. This is the U.S. military, and this is Mike LORENZ, who was going to prison. That's what this evidence is revealing. That's what this evidence is relevant to. The Ontario Police Department gang stalking me, and Ontario Police Department helicopters, the U.S. military using its own helicopters, using military aircrafts, using the commercial airline companies to stalk right here. The elderly are going without. This is speaking to, they're already prosecuted. They're monitoring. And this doesn't stop the evidence from going on the internet. These are desperate acts. And this desperation is a threat to national security. And while they engage in that, they're going to be committed. Okay, Mike LORENZ is going to be subject to mental examinations. The homosexuals of the U.S. military as well, they're going to be involuntarily committed. They're also going to be prosecuted for treason. So are the people of the state. This is levying war. And you're going to be federally prosecuted for it. This is levying war. That's what they're doing inside of the library, by the way. Levying war, stalking you in the path, doing so on behalf of the government. They're going to federal prison for that. That's P.O.C. And this is while they're keeping my evidence under surveillance, what it is that I'm doing on my device. Doing so, again, like I documented earlier, the entity's stalking by helicopter because they're scared about what it is that I'm publishing. And this is what I published today regarding what is April 14th. The entity's stalking me by helicopter the moment that I went to this playlist and began reviewing the evidence to publish it online. And so that would be this video right here that I was reviewing at 7:44 a.m. regarding the Fontana Police Department stalking me at Sierra Avenue and Foothill, where the fake sun is over me in the morning, and as I documented hours later at the same intersection where the people of the state, just like you see now, are stalking with the entity that is, again, another gang member. That's the Ontario Police, the gang members of the Fontana Police that share the pattern of conduct that's all over the internet. And I'm subject to terrorism in real time while they're engaging in federal stalking on the venue of the internet. Speaking to surveillance that you are subject to, while I'm exposing the fact that as I'm subject to surveillance and I'm documenting it, the Ontario Police Department are being disbanded. Every kidnapper, like Jay Hernandez, gang stalking me at the El Superior grocery store, as I'm documenting at 4:33 in the evening, he's going to prison. That's what I'm documenting here. So while the entity is stalking me by helicopter, let me show you how this evidence is relevant, because he's going to federal prison. While the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct, and I'm publishing video about the Fontana Fontana Lewis Library gang stalking me under the fake sun.
It is 4:33 p.m.
I'll show you. This is the public corruption. This is public corruption. They're gang stalking at the Fontana Lewis Library with their minor children, just like you see this demon doing with his minor child under the fake sun. Fake sun is over me. This is at 4:33 p.m. And I'm reminding you, attaching the videos, showing you how the San Bernardino County Fontana Lewis Library is gang stalking. And this is reminding you about what Jay Lewis is doing under the fake sun in Ontario, California, where this department is stalking me in Ontario by helicopter. Okay? This is the entity that's engaging in the provision of that evidence. And the entity is engaging in this while they are monitoring what it is that I'm putting on the internet. That's never wise to engage in. The entity is engaging in this out of acts of desperation, and guess who's going to prison? Everybody that I already documented. And logic, sanity, those that are not demon-possessed, those are not idiots, those that know how to cease to, in other words, refrain from criminal activity, they don't engage in more of it and actually think that that's going to stop a federal prosecution. The federal government is watching me lay down the law regarding how they are going to be prosecuted under federal law and laws that shall come into existence in order to prosecute terrorists like the city of Ontario, the people of the state, those that are engaging in this P.O.C. But I want you to see how the body of evidence surrounds them. The entity is gang stalking me at the Upland Public Library at 4:33 p.m., where I'm reminding you about what they're doing in Ontario. And the entity is gangsta. There's a chain of evidence, so I can go from video to video. The day prior, it was March 11th. So March 11th, and then the next day in Upland, California, March 12th. And the entity is keeping the fake sun over me, so I will show you that evidence. Hernandez is going to prison while the entity is stalking me today by helicopter as I'm publishing evidence on the venue of the internet. This is P.O.C. This is the pattern of conduct that is serving to put them away.
Ontario Police stalking at Superior. This is a psychopath monitoring my vagina the entire time. 1697634 with the Ontario Internet.
This is relevant to what's at the same time over me in Fontana, California. While I'm publishing this damning evidence, Hernandez, that's already on the record, is going to prison. This is how the evidence is showing an ongoing track record. And who is stalking me in concert with this department? The people of the state. In this department, while I'm online publishing the evidence, the people of the state, okay? They're going to prison. Mike LORENZ is going to prison. The people of the state that are gang stalking in this psychopathic manner, looking down,
petting your dog, engaging, acting like you're hitting me accidentally, they're going to be involuntarily committed and they're going to federal prison. The entity is going to be deported. They're also losing custody of their demonic children that are gang stalking and furtherance of murder with that same department that you saw providing evidence regarding treason in the United States while they levy war, chaos, psychological torture practice against an American citizen. And they do that in concert with those outside of the United States. There will be no police department, no city council, no senior center. There will be no fire department. There will be no ambulances while they're sitting around monitoring my vagina. That's why they sound sirens, not because there's an emergency. The emergency is my evidence that's being published on the internet. The emergency is everything that I'm documenting. The emergency is that they are fully exposed and they're so psychotic, they keep doing it in front of the whole world. Because the entity has engaged in abusing these positions, there will be none of them. They're losing all of them. They're losing the funding for all of it. This will be a very real demonic ghetto. This is P.O.C. This is federal stalking Title 18 conduct. Stalking me in real time by helicopter as I'm on the venue of the internet where I'm under surveillance by them, the people, and the entity, on whose behalf the people of the state are stalking you as I'm showing you while they're gang stalking me. This is the entity that's been doing this all day long, stalking at the Stater Brothers in the morning, stalking in the grocery store, stalking at the fake church, stalking while I walk from that venue to this place where the entity is maintaining plane and helicopter activity. They're going to be literally defunding everything. You use it to engage in the pattern of conduct, you're losing it. Okay? This is P.O.C. It is currently 4:59 p.m. I just want to be clear, this is indeed a series of psychopathic pacing by homosexuals who are petrified by my evidence. If you recall, the entity stalking me by helicopter and running away in that helicopter while I'm on Euclid Avenue at G Street. And then the entity proceeded to admit that they're stalking me by following me to this same library where they're flying in circles. Again, these are the same homosexuals that are engaging in this conduct. And the entity's reward is a federal prosecution for treason. So the entity is going to produce the identity. Mike LORENZ is already identified. He is going to prison, okay? And so are the people of the state. This is the demon gang stalking, by the way, inside of the bathroom at the Open Public Library. The entity is engaging in this conduct under the fake sun. While the entity is engaging in this is what's being published right now, what I'm putting on X. The entity is fearful. This is fear. The entity engages in what are acts of war when they are fearful. They are going to prison. The demon in this helicopter is going to be, their identity is going to be produced. They're going to prison. Period. And I want to be clear, that third party, by the way, she's engaged in what is stalking in the bathroom where I'm showing you the fake sun at the Open Public Library. This is all supposed to be a distraction. Talk about something else. Oh, look, this stalker over here. Talk about that. Talk about this. These are demons that are engaging in what is partaking in homosexuality based upon their being deceived by the devil, thinking that gay sex is going to help you in the same way that you think stalking and me putting it on video serving to prosecute you is going to help you in some way or change the subject. This demon, he's engaged in battery at the Methodist Church. These demons looking to the left and the right. The entity is providing evidence against him. He's going to prison. Okay, I have his identity engaged in serial stalking and is doing so right now while the entity is repeatedly flying in circles. This is going on X. This is relevant to the video that I captured regarding federal stalking. This is also relevant to Google that is being federally prosecuted under these facts. Google is being federally prosecuted. YouTube removing my evidence while they are sharing in the criminal pattern of conduct on the venue of the internet. In the specific environment, Google is headquartered in California. They remove my evidence based on their bias, criminal perspective and position, and they threaten my life in doing so, and they're doing so in concert with the U.S. government. YouTube is a facilitating venue for the U.S. military that is targeting us and keeping us under surveillance, and I'm going to prosecute. Sergey, is that his name? This is the entity. I'm going to federally prosecute Google. In fact, you're witnessing it. This is the P.O.C. It's currently 5:26 p.m. (5:38 p.m.) This is ongoing fear by the terrorists who are, again, they practice heavy homosexuality, and this shows you the absence of any manhood or bravery or courage. They're nothing other than, and they've been nothing but terrorists and murderers. That is the U.S. military that's stalking me because they're scared of my YouTube channel. They're scared of my evidence. They're scared of the truth that I speak, the way that I describe, the raw, unadulterated truth, and they are stalking me in a whole helicopter, which will also not make you a man. This is also why they voluntarily bend over for Satan and hand over their manhood. This is the entity that's engaged in this criminal activity and embarrassing themselves. And this embarrassment is very costly. They're going to prison and they will not be getting out as domestic terrorists. Okay, the entity that's engaged in what is vulgar acts regarding the pattern of conduct, they engage in this with regard to praying to Satan that cannot help them as I am prosecuting them. Okay, this is the P.O.C. The entity's flying over the senior citizen complex, John Stewart Company that I'm prosecuting. The entity's flying over the Ontario Senior Center that I'm going to prosecute. The city of Ontario is being defunded, flying over me while this batterer of the this demon with the stroller, the large stroller, and the small dog engaging in what is battering me, and doing so without batting an eye, does so engaging in what is violence against a woman, because the entity is gang stalking like you're witnessing in helicopter, and doing so again while I'm being monitored on my device. This third party, that's engaging in battery, as I documented last Friday. He's going to prison. Okay, so this is somebody that's engaged in that criminal activity and just sitting there next to you, which is a threat to your life and safety, aiding the government that's having a mental crash out by flying in circles and doing cartwheels and pacing up over my head and pacing over the building because of what it is that I'm doing on my device, which I have every right under the law in order to do so. And by the way, even if there were no constitution and I was enforcing my rights and literally creating it in real time, that is absolutely lawful because the government is the criminal. But there is much more than that in existence, and the people of the state are paying the penalty, and the entity that is stalking me is doing so because they are petrified, and they should be. This is the reality of Satan, who is no gangster, no thug, and bumping Tupac Shakur does not make you that. I just want to be clear because that's the type of cowardice that surrounds me. This is an entity that's engaged in that, and you have Amanda that's gang stalking. This is the elderly female that is engaging in criminal activity, very malicious elderly female who's going to be in need of funding for housing. She's going to be in need of funding with regard to food to put in her home, and she will not be getting it from the government. Okay, this is an entity that's going to have to clutch arms and look for support from each other, because there will be absolutely zero assistance from the government that's also being removed. This is prosecuting Paul Leon. I don't think they realize that. But Paul Leon's going to federal prison. Mike LORENZ is going to federal prison. The gang stalker that I gave an example of, Hernandez, who was stalking me under a fake sun in Ontario while I used the city of Fontana at the same time, he's going to prison, including while that department, the U.S. military is stalking me in the city of Ontario, where that police department is engaging in criminal surveillance. You're stalking and you've committed kidnappings, targeting me and doing so. He's going to prison under all circumstances. This is the P.O.C. The entities engaging in this while they are incriminating Google and YouTube, who has been targeting my content that still remains suppressed on the venue of the internet, which is an unlawful threat to my life, waiting for me to die, is what Google, under the ownership of this domestic terrorist, a corporate entity engaging in the pattern of conduct, is indeed identifying domestic terrorists that are making money off of the surveillance system. Sergey is one of the owners of Google that is engaging in criminal surveillance, and he's very much aware of what it is that I've exposed on the venue of the internet, just like the entity that's engaging in terrorizing me and targeting me outside of the U.S. This is the entity that's engaging in terrorism internationally, targeting me in the United States by the U.S. military, by the state of California. This is the level of treason. And stalking me by helicopter is based on tremendous fear. This is the entity that's monitoring. And both of those videos that I captured today, while it is relevant regarding context of what I'm publishing online, is going to be shared on X while you're listening on the podcast. This is the entity at what is 5:42 p.m. still stalking me, still engaging in what is flying in circles, still scared to death. And guess what? It's still going on the internet. Only the mentally ill are the ones that don't understand that. They are going to be committed. You engaged in stalking as a police department, you need to expect, you've been given advance notice, because you're going to be involuntarily committed. You're stalking as the U.S. military, you have been given advance notice. You are going to be subject to commitments. You're being committed. You're not just going to prison, you're going into mental institutions, and you have been warned. And literally you gave the federal government the evidence, the material that necessitates that. The entity that is engaged in this criminal activity is a threat to themselves and to society. And they have every intention to continuously wage that threat while they are being documented and are fully aware of it. They're not hiding from anyone. They're not hiding anything. What is the purpose of engaging in this? While you have those that will be in court with absolutely zero defense, like the entire Ontario Police Department, the city of Ontario that is under a fake sun, targeting one person, as the entire community shares in that. The community on video stalking me with impossible light activity. There is zero defense for anyone. All of them together are literally under what is the federal RICO. They're going to be prosecuted for treason, and they will be treated as domestic terrorists that reside within the country. The entities engaging in this, I just want to be clear, this is underscoring fear. Fear that is speaking to a threat to national security. And accordingly, those that demonstrate the severe mental instability as the domestic terrorists, the U.S. military, the people of the state, they are going to be subject to what are involuntary commitments. And the entity is going to be subject to these institutions, these facilities that are going to be built all over the country. They are going to be filled with domestic terrorists, the demon possessed, for the protection of the American public. This is P.O.C. It is currently 5:44 p.m. and I am publishing on X the video that was published today while the U.S. military commenced to stalking me by helicopter in the city of Ontario, which is prosecuting the Ontario Police Department. The entities engaging in this pattern of conduct with the people of the state who are engaging in stalking and terrorism in concert with that U.S. military and the city of Ontario. They make up the city of Ontario because the people of the state are not private citizens engaging in the public entity's pattern of conduct. I am also publishing the videos where the entity is targeting me, and I'm going to point that this is pointing to the way in which you're prosecuting for what is surveillance on the internet, surveillance by a population, which is shown in that specific environment. It is the P.O.C., and this is speaking to prosecuting those on the venue of the internet, such as TikTok, such as Facebook, such as YouTube, where they are engaging what is targeting me, targeting content in furtherance of my murder. And you will not only be paying me, you will be subject to what are criminal prosecution for crimes that you're going to serve time for. This is P.O.C. You're hearing the entity stalking, flying over the OVITT Family Community Library, flying over the Ontario Senior Center, flying over the John Stewart Company Senior Citizen Apartment Complex, flying over the Ontario City Hall, flying over the 2B the College of Laverne University of Law, which is a corrupt institution. They will not be accredited. They are to be removed from any accredited status. You're not going to attend University of Laverne College of Law and sit for the California Bar of Practice. The entities engaging in what is this pattern of conduct at the Ontario Civic Center, and all of these venues are sharing in that pattern of conduct. While the people of the state are automatically prosecuted for what the government is doing, they are doing so as a population. And this is the entity engaging in that when they have lost. Clearly, you're listening to the entity that is engaging in what is severe mentally unstable behavior because of the level of loss, the level of exposure. And it is entirely mentally ill to engage in this behavior because you lost. And you lost in what? In an endeavor to murder someone and make it look like that person died of suicide. That's why Tracy Banks and the U.S. government has insurance policies on me and claim that I'm dead already. While you're stalking me in this manner in helicopters, you need to understand that you're going to be committed, and clearly you're not prepared for that. But the administration of justice is not going to be contingent upon that. Alrighty, first of all, you're mindful of who is walking, who is stalking, in other words, at the Ontario Civic Center. It's the people of the state that you see walking their dogs, that you see pushing the strollers, that you're aware that work at the city hall, that you are aware that live in the venue, the apartment complexes, that you see studying their devices, that you see walking with their books to the College of Laverne, that you see coming in and out with their kids, with their lunches that they're going to give away to the children at the library. That's who is gang stalking with the mentally ill that are stalking in helicopter. Don't forget that. What the entity is literally doing is monitoring what it is that I'm doing on my phone. And what you're witnessing as they're stalking in a helicopter, this is exactly what you witnessed this morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. And what is it that triggers the mentally ill? Meaning, what is it that begins their behavior for you to see what has always been there in the first place? This is making their demon possession, which is spiritual, physical, in order for you to see it through their behavior. The entity that had 8 to 9 planes flying over me repeatedly at B Street in between Palm and Vine is the entity that engaged in a mental crash out this morning. That's what you witnessed. The entity that is engaged in what is surveilling, the entity that's enraged because you lose. Even though this isn't a competition, you're stalking me in order to murder me. That's not a competition, and this is not a game, and you'll understand that when you are committed and behind bars. Nonetheless, you lose. You've lost in this. There is no route to freedom. There's no route to success. There's no route to help by doing more. And the entity does not just more, the entity does a lot more. And that's what you witnessed at 6 o'clock in the morning. The entity was monitoring my device. The entity is also engaging in what is failing at psychologically torturing me to the point that I'm just going to stop and have a breakdown in the middle of the street and stop documenting. And oh my goodness, just never mind. It's not them. It's me. I'm crazy. That's never, ever going to happen. And even if you were silent, these are facts. Even if you were silent while the entity is gang stalking you, the entity is clearly stalking you. And you are not imagining anything. And no one will ever be criminally defamed again. In fact, those that practice gang stalking, which is a satanic ritual exposing mental illness, that's a threat to national security, they will be committed. And it is no act of defamation. It is an act to protect the public. The entity is engaging in exactly, while you're looking at the pattern of conduct, you're looking at the pattern regarding serious behavioral health issues that threaten the United States, American citizens. This level of stalking, while I'm engaged in what is very triggering to demons, criminal conduct, exposing them, because as I'm using tangible evidence to prove a criminal act, I am discerning and exposing and speaking to and telling everyone about the demons that they are. The demons that they actually are then become very triggered, and they behave in ways that prove exactly what it is that I stated. Sounding sirens, stalking in planes, stalking in helicopter for a prolonged period of time at the moment when they're triggered that I begin speaking. This is the entity that's not going to have any fire department, police department, ambulance services. They're not even engaged in the provision of emergency services. Common sense, reasonable correlation. The entity's talking about helicopter. What do you think the sirens are for? It's the P.O.C. Nonetheless, you're witnessing that same ongoing pattern. So listen to and watch what you saw this morning in that 9-minute video. This is the entity that is at 5:42 p.m. 10 minutes. They're still stalking in helicopter while I'm capturing video about what's going on the internet. That the Ontario police, the U.S. military stalking me in the middle of the night at the Ontario Town Square. And as I published that video on April 14, 2026, the entity is flying over my head, stalking me at this venue of the OVITT Family Community Library, speaking to the OVITT Family Community Library, being a gang stalker, flying in circles around me over the senior center, over the city hall, which includes the fire department, Michael GERKEN, that includes the OVITT Family Community Library. This is all City of Ontario, where the entity is stalking by planes and helicopters. That entity that is in that same environment, meaning they're flying over your house, the people that live in that house are stalking. It's literally tied to that, and I've shown that that is a matter of evidence. Not something that is subject to any exception or an anomaly. The exception is where that targeted individual is in that house, which is where you would document it like LAPD did to me in my apartment in Alvarado Gardens, like the Ontario Police Department did while I'm inside of Tracy Banks's apartment, where the entity is targeting me, I am the only one that's maintaining my privacy. The people of the state don't have any privacy. It's the public entity. They're in the shoes of the entity, and they have waived privacy because they're engaging in criminal surveillance, and they are exploiting the U.S. Constitution, which is also why they're going to federal prison when they try to prosecute you when they try to kidnap, harass you, obstruct justice, as you're documenting them criminally surveilling you, including where they work, where they're traveling, where they live, anywhere where they're at, where surveillance is going on everywhere. You don't have any privacy here at all. But I'm not even going into the bathroom stall to get you like any sort of perverted means, as they are monitoring my vagina and violating my privacy, and as an entity, including the sex offenders of the Ontario Fire Department, keeping my vagina under surveillance. That's also why Michael GERKEN is not going to keep his career in firefighting, and neither is any of the vagina monitors of that department. They're not engaged in firefighting. This is criminal surveillance. And that's the purpose of their sirens, by the way. That's the purpose of the fire department in the city, by the way. And that's the U.S. military that's blowing the whistle on their own co-defendant, the Ontario Fire Department. What the entity is literally doing, while you're paying attention to what you're always looking at the big picture, what were they doing this morning at 6? The same thing that the entity was doing right now. stalking and losing it, freaking out. And who is exposed under all that? The demon-possessed people of the state. Those who are unfit to have minor children, but they do have them. Really creepy. Those that are unfit to be in the medical profession and law enforcement, but they are. Very terrorizing. This is the public corruption issue. This is what's being corrected. This is what's being cut off from the rest of the American public as a matter of martial law. All right, this is the P.O.C. All right, it is currently 5:55 p.m. where the entity is monitoring on the venue of the internet and on X, which is going to be used with regard to prosecution. This is the U.S. military that's stalking at the Ontario Senior Center that's being defunded. Who's going into the Ontario Senior Center? The senior citizens who will not be experiencing any benefits from the City of Ontario, that will not be able to afford. They will not maintain a civic center, a city hall, a city council, a city apartment complex. They will not be employing any terrorists like the City of Ontario employees are. They're terrorists who are employed. The entity is providing a means to create paychecks, paid positions where they're engaged in nothing other than surveillance. The entity is being defunded in every regard. This is defunding public corruption, which is surveillance, criminal surveillance. They're engaging in what is stalking at the senior center. This is what they were doing while they are stalking at B Street this morning. Now, you're engaging in this plain activity. That's exactly what I was pointing out to you, while you're always using it, because I can point to evidence. The entity has no evidence that I ever died. The entity has no evidence that I ever committed a sexual act of violence against a child. The entity has no evidence that I ever engaged in any commission of any crime whatsoever, including while I'm sleeping outside on the bench where the entity targeted me. So that's where I would be at while they engage in stalking me, wearing pistols on their hips and badges on their chest while they're stalking in this manner. Right? And then claiming that you're violating the municipal code, the entity that seeks to criminalize homelessness while they create that economic state in order to kidnap and defame you. This is how this corrupt system is operating, and you're going to prison for that. You're not crafty at all. This is how all of that evidence is going to serve to prosecute the terrorist himself, Paul Leon. The terrorist himself, Mike Lorenz. Don't forget about Derek Williams. You're not retiring out of any prosecution, sir. Every day I'm documenting why you're going to prison. Okay, this is the entity that's engaging in that. While the pattern of conduct is underway, you're stalking over the Ontario Civic Center, the entire Ontario Civic Center. They're doing construction. They're building the transit line in anticipation of the Olympics that are going to be in LA. Ontario, California will be no parts of that. None of it is going to happen. There will be no funding. There will be no city council. There's not going to be none of this. They are engaging in criminal activity for which they are going to compensate an American citizen. The companies are going to compensate the American citizen. The people of the state are going to compensate that American citizen. And all sources of terrorism, meaning the neighborhoods, meaning those that are welfare recipients, meaning the government that is paying anything for all of that entity, providing programs where you're getting any licensure to create an establishment, where you're getting any aid from the government for food, for housing, whatever, in any programs where you're getting any, they're not getting any of that. And everything that the government is using, including the city hall, including the police department, including the senior center, the entity is going to be defunded. Okay, this is P.O.C. It's currently 5:58 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and capture images so you can see where the U.S. military is maintaining stalking not only by helicopter but by commercial airplanes. This is getting to what is very severe mentally ill behavior, and they're doing so while they're keeping me under surveillance, not only here in my physical presence regarding what is relevant positioning, but they're doing it regarding what is on the venue of the internet. That's the significance of the plane activity. That's what's the significance of what is beyond stalking. You're already stalking me and you know where I'm at. You follow me to this venue. What you are witnessing is literally the mentally ill behavior by doing so in 2,500 planes. Why do you have to have 25 planes flying over? Why are you maintaining 30 planes every hour flying over where no planes under any circumstances moreover? So it's not even about what the airport is doing and the level of business and flights that are taken off from the airport. They are targeting by coming over here, and that plane activity, the significance of the helicopter activity. What is the significance of that? This is beyond stalking. It is literally mentally ill behavior why they engage in it. But also the intent behind it, the purpose, the system, all of the manpower and the funds that are engaged in it. It's all mentally ill. It's exceeding stalking. You already followed me here where I'm at. So what is the significance of doing so and plane after plane flying by me? You want to keep looking at me? You want to keep being, they're monitoring. Monitoring is mentally ill behavior. It is the spirit of mental illness. And those that are criminally monitoring, that's the police, that's the sheriff, that's the courthouse, that's the population, that's the community. The city council members, they're mentally ill. They're demons. They're mentally ill. They're doing more than just stalking. They are clutching hands together, sharing and monitoring you. And they're doing so while they are exposing, and they are being diagnosed via a federal prosecution. This public investigation is serving to diagnose that community, which is across this land, the United States. The entity is engaging in what is providing evidence against itself regarding what is very much necessary and supported by evidence. And this is the diagnosis, the ability to recognize those that are a threat to themselves and the public. And it includes the U.S. military that is engaging in what is waging war internationally in the United States. And what do I mean by that? The U.S. military, the United States government, is in concert with those that are outside of the United States, targeting American citizens. Okay, betraying, in other words, its own country. And they do so based on what are, by the way, demonic practices such as homosexual activity, thinking that they will be empowered and that they'll maintain secret. They lost all of that. So what was all that gay sex about? Other than contracting HIV, what did you accomplish? Because they're embarrassing themselves now. You're serving to diagnose yourself. You are severely unstable by stalking me in a helicopter and in commercial planes where it is irreconcilable. It is entirely unsupported and glaring improper conduct in the courtroom, where it will be a matter of testimony. What takeoff, what plane, what destination, and where is that in the record? They're maintaining record. You're going to be it's a matter of you're going to prison. You're going to prison. You're going to be committed. This is the level. Everything that I'm talking about is not just going to be a fluke. It's a matter of also judicial notice. It's common sense. You're not conducting any takeoff over 4 miles northwest of the airport. You're also not engaging in that engaging in that every 60 seconds. The entities engaging, there's also no sun, a judicial notice. There's no sun that sits over one building for 10 hours in the day. It is also a matter of what is not ignorant. You're not ignorant, and you're also not deaf with regard to the entity that is clearly engaging in what is stalking together, the people and the U.S. military. While the helicopter is flying in circles and everyone is behaving as though they're oblivious. They don't hear it. They don't see it. They don't report it. They don't complain about it. This is a matter of judicial notice. That unintelligent system, which is supposed to create, and it would never, that's not even logical. But this is where you have the demon-possessed, the corrupt, that are creating their own they're running the court. They're running the case. They're running the so-called investigation. They are creating the facts. And that's where that is entertained. But that is nonsense. And it is a matter of common sense that you're not only not ignorant about that, you are thereby participating in the pattern of conduct by targeting someone, psychologically torturing them in doing so, and also acting as though you're oblivious to it while you are engaged in that pattern of conduct. But you can acknowledge it. You can say something about it. You can say nothing about it, because I'm going to prosecute you in your silence. I'm going to prosecute you with anything that comes out of your face, anything and everything that comes out of your face. This is the government that has surrounded itself with evidence, highly unintelligent, highly unskilled, highly incompetent, highly unstable. This is the entity that's doing so because they are fearful, and don't you ever forget it. This is the P.O.C. The entities engage in this while they are very much keeping my evidence under surveillance, my evidence that is highly probative, that is 1,000% true, lacking in any exaggeration. I do not tell stories, and I don't have time to do that. And the entity basically should have left me alone. And not only did they not leave me alone, now you're witnessing, not only are you crazy for engaging in this in the first place, you're crazy while you're exposed and you're engaging in what is just an ongoing campaign, an ongoing body of evidence that could be examined on National Geographic, while the entities engage in this level of criminal conduct, of corrupt conduct, of abnormal, inhumane, animalistic behavior, barbaric activity, all because I'm telling on you. All right, that's the entity that's monitoring my vagina. They're mentally ill sex offenders. Don't ever forget it. This is P.O.C. at 6:04 p.m. This is federal stalking. Okay, and the mental crash out is pursuant to what is monitoring my device, my evidence, monitoring me in real time because I'm documenting you. This is directly incriminating every time YouTube took my video down and lying about privacy concerns while you are violating the privacy of everyone that is on that platform. While you are engaged in gang stalking in the state of California, I hope you are listening, Mr. Sergey. I'm prosecuting you. You do not have any protection. I don't care how well paid that attorney is. You don't have any defense under the law. The malice of what YouTube and Google is engaging in. Your co-defendant is having a mental breakdown on my podcast. I'm putting it on the internet and I'm going to prosecute you. Because I lived through the threat that you waged against me does not mean that you will be held, that you will not be held liable for it. To the contrary, sir. You will be prosecuted for the unlawful threat that you pose as a corrupt corporate entity on the venue of the internet, targeting with the U.S. military. Very much aware of the truth that I speak, and you having no basis even under your fraudulent community guidelines, where the fake son has nothing to do with any sort of content that is a threat to the public or violating anybody's privacy or something that needs to be seen by those that are over the age of 18. I have the evidence. It's sitting on the record. While I'm being gang stalked and YouTube is removing my evidence and the entity is engaged in what is flying in circles over me by helicopter, much like what you listened to today. These same facts are serving to prosecute the entity online. They are engaging in surveilling us on the venue of the internet, and these social media platforms are fully engaging in that. They're profiting from it just like Amazon Prime is profiting from keeping you under surveillance and serving you products that you purchase. That's exactly what the online venues are engaging in, and I'm going to prosecute you for it. I'm going to prosecute. I'm going to exhaust your pockets as a matter of justice. This is the P.O.C. This is how unintelligent your system is. And you tell yourselves that you're geniuses while you are under the fake sun in San Bruno, California, and I'm prosecuting you while it's sitting over my head in Ontario, California. Pick an hour, any hour. Because any hour of the day, I can prosecute Google, the corporate entity, headquartered in California, that's engaging in criminal surveillance as a matter of scientific evidence. This is the P.O.C. I know that you're not ready for it, but it's already happening while the entity's entire pattern of conduct has imploded. It's 6:06 p.m. All right, this is direct evidence regarding the malice, regarding targeted harassment that Lupe is exhibiting when she is engaging what is locking me out of the Wendy's during business hours, while the entity is stalking me at the venue and en route to the venue, which is speaking to her identification as the same entity that is Wendy's, that is gang stalking. Southwest Airlines no longer flying over the Senior Center. This is Holt Boulevard. They are migrating south as I am migrating south. There's no takeoffs here. And there is also no flights from the airport that will continue at the same elevation and same public nuisance noise level over the Stater Brothers parking lot, like I'm documenting Southwest Airlines and every other airline. The people of the state are stalking, and so is Lupe. And Wendy's committed what is a targeted act of harassment and furtherance of murder and psychological torture. And she is a malicious actor lying about her knowledge or ignorance of knowledge regarding my presence. While I'm in the specific environment, the military is targeting me via Wendy's. This is P.O.C. Misrepresentation of fact of Lupe's knowledge about me and locking me out of the venue where Wendy's is gang stalking, where the people of the state are stalking me with light, as my evidence shows at this Wendy's, keeping my vagina under surveillance inside of that Wendy's on behalf of the U.S. military that's gang stalking at the auto zone. Gang stalk about the people of the state who are stalking everywhere, who are going to be prosecuted for conspiring by murder, stalking, following as a population of the mentally ill. And Wendy's is a corrupt corporate entity engaging in that. That's what Lupe represents, okay? She is one that's engaging in what is an act of hatred, while she's engaging in what is violating my rights to not be subject to targeting at Wendy's, and then lying about it like a coward. Okay, this is the P.O.C. The U.S. military is engaging in surveillance with the people of the state who are demons, stalking with light, targeting me inside of that restaurant, engaging in that while they're making purchases, and that's, again, the prosecution of corporate entities for treason. All right, Wendy's is a sex offender, Wendy's is a terrorist, and so is Lupe, gang stalking me at the Wendy's as the evidence shows, and this will be used to prosecute her, just like the evidence of me being gang stalked everywhere else in the city of Ontario. This is P.O.C. It is currently 7:19 p.m. We already know the P.O.C. is underway. That's why the homosexuals are stalking in commercial airline planes. P.O.C. All right, these are gang stalkers. And this is the same Ontario, the Ontario Town Square townhomes that were stalking. The last time I went to Wendy's and Lupe talking about she didn't see me while she's gang stalking like all the rest of the sex offenders or the people. So gang stalking at 458 This is number 459, stalking in the path with light activity, just chilling at the facilitating venue. They'll be prosecuted by address as well. Engaging what is loitering in the path illegally parked in order to engage in what is sexual assault and battery with engineer light. These are the homosexual lesbians that are gang stalking, wanting to touch another woman, stalking a woman, doing so in concert with the entity that is doing so. This is 454B Street. Everybody over here is gang stalking. 456B Street. That's the address. And this is 9TON 476. This is the U.S. military that's engaging in the pattern of conduct. They're engaging in the pattern of conduct, stalking together with the people of the state. They're engaging in that pattern of conduct while they're molesting with impossible light activity, stalking the price 9MAY 788. That's the P.O.C. It says no parking right here. She's illegally parked. She's engaged in gang stalking, and she's approaching like you're going to do something while you're engaging in targeting. This is a psychopath. This is a demon in engineer light. This is the entity that was a threat to engage in battery. That she's going to prison. She's going to prison. There's a pattern of conduct. This is the engineer light. This is what the U.S. military engages in. Look at the P.O.C. P.O.C. That's the third threat of physical harm. Gang stalking. This is the entity that's engaged in that. That's prison. And this is the entity that engages in gang stalking you and then engages in acting as ratchet with minor children, engaging in that P.O.C. She's going to prison. All right, that's P.O.C. This is the entity that stalks you and then engages in when you're documenting the psychopaths, and then they engage in that P.O.C. together. This is the same Ontario Town Square townhomes where they're stalking by planes, where they're engaging in what is loitering in the path, molesting with impossible light, doing so while then threatening to engage in what is a battery. That's the state that's stalking. 9TDN 476, that's P.O.C. She's going to hurt me. She's going to do that while she's got minor kids. She's going to engage in that battery. She's gang stalking with minor kids. That's the P.O.C. This is the same apartment complex where they're stalking by commercial planes. She's targeting with the state. That's the P.O.C. That's the state that's targeting. The Ontario Fire Department is targeting the demons that are engaged in that pattern of conduct. That's P.O.C. Is there anything else you'd like to say? That's the entity stalking by helicopter. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Because they stalking by helicopter. Keep talking. No, you're the one that's on drugs, Satan. Is there anything else? You got kids with you talking like that, engaging the P.O.C.? Anything else? All right, that's the P.O.C. That's the entity stalking by helicopter while you're threatening physical harm and gang stalking. You're going to prison. That's the P.O.C. This is the entity that engages that. This is the entity that's doing so, stalking, flying right over my head. She's going to prison. That is, again, 9TDN 476, uttering a threat of physical violence with the state. That's the P.O.C. Alrighty? Those are demons. Those are demons. That's the demon possessed. Okay? That's the pattern of conduct. Satan doesn't have a race. You see this light activity? They're demons. They're monitoring. She's going to prison. P.O.C. I'll see you later. You can beat me up when you're in court. Okay? Don't forget, we got an appointment in court. All right, P.O.C. See you later. That's the entity that's engaged in that. She's uttering threats, and the entity stalks by helicopter. This is the pattern of conduct. She's a psychopath stalking me. Vagina monitors with minor children, gang stalking, using your minor children as an excuse to stalk another woman, and you're demon-possessed, mentally ill. You're going to be committed with that evidence. I hope you know that. You're getting committed. You're going to be committed. That's P.O.C. You better watch your mouth, Satan. I want to show you where the entity is stalking me. This is where the people of the state are stalking, just like at Ontario Town Square townhomes. This is not that. This is OVITT Family Community Library, where the entity is maintaining psychopathic pacing north of the Ontario Town Square townhomes, which is along B Street. The entity is engaging what is stalking me, and so are the people of the state. The entity that's engaging what is flying over the Ontario Town Square townhomes is doing so at a location distinct from where I'm at right now. This is what the U.S. military, these gang stalking cowards who are also homosexuals, whose sexual experimentation has failed them, and it is a basis for having them committed while they engage in what is terrorizing an American citizen, that they are not going to publicly murder me in front of everyone that knows that you're stalking me, and I guess that's how you're going to end now. None of that is going to happen, and everybody that's witnessing that is aware of it. There's no mysterious happenings surrounding me in my life. Everyone knows what's happening. So now you're witnessing a bunch of homosexuals who are a part of the U.S. military, who make up a mentally ill population of the demon-possessed who practice witchcraft that has failed them, and it shall be the basis of having them committed. This is what is relevant regarding stalking me. You're stalking in planes and helicopters, and you are stalking as a population. You are stalking, following me from place to place, and you're doing more than stalking. You're repeatedly stalking in all manner of planes and helicopters where I go nowhere. I'm sitting here. And the entity is following me from place to place and maintaining psychopathic pacing all around me pursuant to my movements and my activity devices, and while they're triggered by anything that I happen to say or do, like publishing evidence on the YouTube platform where I'm under surveillance online. This is the entity that is stalking at the Ontario Town Square. That's B Street. The people of the state are stalking me with light while they are in the path flying over Ontario Town Square townhomes, which is along B Street. That's what this sex offender is doing.
And this is the same Ontario, the Ontario Town Square townhomes that were stalking. The last time I went to Wendy's and Lupe talking about she didn't see me while she's gang stalking like all the rest of the sex offenders.
That's the entity that is stalking at the Ontario Town Square townhomes. That is entirely distinct from, and this is the sex offender that's doing so. Okay, you're a psychopath while you're gang stalking somebody, and you want to, this is how the pattern of conduct is supposed to present, as though you're consumed with some other activity, and an American citizen is just coincidentally being gang stalked as a matter of a pattern of conduct. The entity is psychopathic, and they're engaging in what is deviating, clear deviation, where you are along B Street flying over the Ontario Town Square townhomes that are co-conspiring in the murder of an American citizen, where the U.S. military is flying all over the people of the state whose addresses are published on the venue of the internet. This is where the entity is gang stalking me, where I am at what is the Ontario Senior Center. Okay, so they followed me as I went to Wendy's, which you already know that. I'm prosecuting Lupe, and I'm prosecuting the sex offender that made a series of threats regarding physically harming me while she's also in custody of minor children, committing a violent sex act against my will and without my consent, and she did so knowing that I'm engaging in what is the documentation of this P.O.C. and so did her co-defendant that flew over my head by helicopter. She is going to prison. Let me remind you about her license plate. License 9TON476 at 425 East B Street. And she looks so excited to be documented as sex offenders are being prosecuted on the venue of the internet, exposing what they are doing in the United States on the venue of the internet and in relevant position with the military that is stalking me, which exposes them stalking me as well. All right, this is the P.O.C. It is currently 10:39 p.m. at 215 East C Street, which is, again, also speaking to what is under no circumstances an ongoing streamline from the airport. This is clear stalking, following from place to place, and then engaging in psychopathic pacing wherever it is that I remain, while the entity is being committed on pursuant to, this is diagnosis via prosecution. P.O.C.